With Gabriel. Here's Gabriel. Steps up in the pocket, looking for the first down, has running room and more. Gabriel down the sideline. Burst of speed at the 20. Cuts it back. Dylan Gabriel, touchdown, OU.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Ewers, end zone. He does have Worthy.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
On second down, it's Daniels on the keeper, trying to break free. Daniels stayed in bounds and scored a Kansas touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Third down throw, might not need the kicker. Touchdown, Phillip Brooks.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Chubb keeps it himself. Made two guys miss. Touchdown!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this very drizzly, wet, like a blanket over us when it comes to rain. I know that we need it in certain parts. Farmers need it, agriculture, golf courses, your front and backyard maybe need it too. And it has been raining all day, and not anytime soon will it stop. Good afternoon. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. This is 365 Sports, and we have the decision on what West Virginia will do with Bob Huggins. Also, earlier today, Brett McMurphy, a note about the Big Ten and non-conference scheduling. Casey Thompson has found a new home. What's going on in the U.S. Senate when it comes to NIL and who is tax exempt? That plus the NFL schedule slowly being released. We'll kind of get into that a little bit today. But let's start with this, the Bob Huggins story. Bob Huggins, after the last 24 to 48 hours with the constant what is going to happen to him. And this has been somewhat polarizing. Pete Thamel had this earlier, and this is an update. All parties have agreed to the stipulations needed for Bob Huggins to return to the sideline next year. It includes a 3-game suspension, $1 million salary reduction, details of his sensitivity training, and then also the fact that some of that money, I'm not sure if that $1 million is going towards different groups at Xavier or elsewhere, but there is the deal. Did they get it right?
Well, I think so. I think actually it's more money he's donating to some groups at Xavier University as well. And so, yeah, it's $1 million comes off that they're not going to pay him. I think they got it right. I mean, that's a really, really stiff fine. It's $1 million for this. So, yeah, I think so. I think that we need to at least attempt as a society of letting someone correct their wrongs. I think. I mean, sometimes people are too far beyond the pale. I do not think Bob Huggins is that guy. And, again, also, if you decide to cast people out and say, well, you made this mistake and you had this belief that's incorrect, or this, you use this language that's wrong, by ruining their lives, you're never going to get them to come over to your side and learn why it's hurtful. You're just hurting someone because they hurt you, and that's not productive. So
it's not so much coming over to their side. It's just understanding things better, right?
Exactly. You're not going to get anybody to understanding and have any kind of common ground on anything and understand why what they said hurts you, is hurtful, or is not funny, or whatever you were trying to do. If you just say, that's it, you're cast out. And so I think this is good. I mean, look, $1 million doesn't hurt Bob Huggins as most it hurt most people, but still, that's a chunk. That's a big chunk of money that everybody would want to have.
Yeah, I mean, it sure pays to be a Hall of Fame basketball coach. That's for sure. I mean, I think that certainly helped in their decision, is that he has had a long, illustrious career with a lot of success, and I think we can all agree that if he was some guy who they were ready to fire, this would have been the perfect opportunity to fire him.
True.
But they don't, and they didn't, and I don't think that that's the wrong decision either. I do think that his career helped in this decision as far as the way it turned out, but I am with Paul on the fact that I'm glad that it's not just let's run a scythe over the entire program and no one gets a chance at contrition of any sort, and we just throw him into the wasteland and never hear from him again, and he's not allowed to talk to the world ever again. I do think there's far too often incidents like that where we just banish somebody without allowing them any chance to try and learn something or set an example for others to make sure that, other people maybe don't say those types of things or ever have those types of thoughts or emotions or whatever. So I do think it's a great opportunity for a learning experience. Anytime when it's monetary and it's a coach who's making millions of dollars, I kind of roll my eyes, honestly. But $1 million is a good chunk of money, and it is, as it said in the article and was laid out, it is going to, the LGBTQ plus center at the university, the Carew Center, and other state and national organizations that support marginalized communities. So that is where some of that money will go. And so, I don't know about, did they get it right or not? I think that's everybody's lone opinion, right? Everybody can probably have different thoughts on they got it right, but there should have been more money, or they got the end result right, but this should have happened instead. So we could all have our different version of that. But on, the surface in general, I don't know right or wrong, but I feel like I do support the fact that they are, not just saying, all right, the media's on our backs, let's fire him and apologize and get on our knees and beg for, Twitter people's mercy. Because I think there is a lot of that's gone on. That's gone on. And, in this case, there's going to be a lot of different opinions, I'm sure, but let's see how it works out. He has no room for error. That much is obvious, nor should he have any room for error. And we'll see how, this perhaps helps, people in West Virginia or at the university or what have you, how that improves maybe relations or just the discussion about it in general. But, we'll see what happens. And I don't disagree nor wholeheartedly go yes, this was perfect. I'm just I understand giving him another chance, and I understand there being some protocols in place, and let's see what he does with it.
Yeah, a couple of people have noted that his contract now, how many years was left on it, is now year to year, and that's probably smart. If he and his attorney, perhaps, I'm not sure if that was a part of the agreement, that instead of 3, 5, or whatever years forever, years left on it, if it goes year to year, that way any kind of concerns about a buyout or whatever, I'm just throwing that out, as I've seen that from a couple of people who report, and the chat room has been that way too. Also, being one of the most beloved figures in the history of the university buys you some leeway and second chances from Carl Evans.
Yes, it does. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that comes into play here. Absolutely. And, that's the way of the world, though, right? I mean, we see it in every walk of life, so we can't be surprised when it happens to the Hall of Fame basketball coach. But, that definitely played into this. If he was, a guy who was 9-27 in his last, 2 seasons, and everybody hated him, I'm sure that would have been the quickest exit door imaginable, but he's not. He's beloved by a lot of people. He's won a lot of games. They've got a great class coming in. We know how this works all over the country a lot of the time. If you win, you have a better chance of surviving whatever the issue may be, most of the time. And so I do think that came into play here, but I do think there are other elements to it as well.
MC Gusta, we'll have a West Virginia analyst on today at 4:30 our time, Central Time, to discuss kind of the reaction in Morgantown and his thoughts about what's happened and transpired the last couple of days. From Stephen, at the same time, just throwing money at a problem doesn't equate to changing change of perspective or heart change. Sometimes there is something that can hit you right between the eyes, and it can change you. There are certain things, I don't know, with Bob Huggins. Bob Huggins made some stupid remarks. There's no question. Offensive as heck, but there's something about him. I do think that he can, in this instance, he's got enough power and enough clout and enough of people who gravitate to him where he could possibly change some things. And hopefully it's not just for a couple of weeks while the story's hot, but also down the road, no matter who's watching and or not.
And look, it's really hard.
Someone just said Neil Brown would not have survived these comments.
No,
maybe
absolutely
not.
not. He would have been gone yesterday. Absolutely.
But, and say like MC Gus just said, like, it's ingrained in him, it won't change. Yeah, maybe. But maybe it won't be. I think we have to err on the side of compassion for all parties, because where Bob Huggins erred was a failure in his humor to be compassionate. Because when he said what he said about Catholics and gay people, it was not compassionate. It was hurtful to those particular groups of people, depending on how they feel about it. And we don't get to determine how other people feel about things. If we would, life would be maybe a whole lot easier. If I could just say, hey, feel like this. You like this food I just made for you. You're all the same. That's not how the world works. So if he had a failure to be compassionate back to him is a ridiculous, stupid circle that's only got us into this point in this country where we're just mad at each other all the time and not talking.
And I'm not saying this is not about Bob Huggins, but I got a bunch of direct messages and also a couple of texts last night. But there's also this, it's wrong what he said, but there's also this immediate reaction that everybody's offended by everything. In this case, I get it. If in fact you're Catholic, if in fact you're LGBTQ, if in those groups, okay. That's I don't know if it didn't offend me, but I also know what he said. I knew as soon as he said it, or as soon as I heard it, oh dear God, this is going to be rather a challenge for Bob Huggins as the Hall of Fame coach or not. So and then Roger Dodger, those two groups you're discussing are completely opposites.
Which is why it was such an interesting bigotry bingo that he hit on it. And yeah, look, Bob Huggins was too comfortable. And yes, they're opposites. Not necessarily, because guess what? In the Catholic faith, there's a large group of people who also happen to be LGBTQ+. They do. It's larger than you may even think, or people who grew up that way and have left or whatever. So, yeah, there's a lot. I get that people want to draw black and white lines in the sand of this is different and that is different. It is not that different. There are overlaps here where people do. And look, it was a joke. It was stupid. He shouldn't have said it. But, you have to be a little compassionate.
Only Bob Huggins knows how he can react to this. And he might have gone to bed last night thinking perhaps that he was not going to coach West Virginia, along with others who probably didn't think he would. I wondered if he would survive even with the power and the kind of person he's been for West Virginia. So there we are with that. Again, Mike Kazaza will join us, 247 Sports, covers West Virginia at 4:30. Then there's this one. This is from Brett McMurphy earlier today. This is only about scheduling. This is a tweet from earlier today. Brett's going to join us today at 4, that the Big Ten is strongly considering removing the requirement of league teams to play a Power 5 non-conference team annually. Starting in 2024, that, of course, is when USC and UCLA joined the Big Ten, the same year that the college football playoff expands to 12 teams. So because of the addition of UCLA and USC is what this story about is. We already have enough tough games because we're in our conference. We don't need to sit there and have any mandate of who you play in non-conference. Some schools, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, I'm not saying, maybe it's even Minnesota and Nebraska will still have non-conference games against Power 5, and there's that term, Power 5. Your thoughts about this story? Craig, start with you.
Yeah, it just seems like it could be for the folks that think that the two top leagues are going to break off. It seems like another step towards that, doesn't it? Or, I mean, at least if you were formulating how that could come to be, well, have one of them stop playing teams from the Pac-12, the Big 12, the SEC, whatever, until the playoff, and limit those types of games on the schedule. I think that's a bummer for fans of huge non-con games if, in fact, it does result in everybody just saying, well, let's get a couple gimmies in here and then go play our Big Ten schedule. But, I enjoy the big non-con games, but I also understand that bringing two teams into the league and you're figuring out what you're going to do about scheduling, and you have a greater emphasis on, the league opponents, that you got to have some leeway somewhere. But, at the same time, I don't really think this is an era where you have to really worry too much about easing your schedules up all that much because of the expanded playoff. Right? So whereas one loss might have killed you, then that loss doesn't really kill you now. So I don't know how much this actually helps. Maybe it gets some of the more mid or like B-tier teams over the hump in an expanded playoff era versus an Ohio State who, if they lost to Alabama in week 2 but runs the table, they're going to be totally fine. But it's interesting that they are looking at that, and it makes me wonder how the schedules continue to kind of evolve over these next few years. Like, do we hear something similar from the SEC in the future? And then what does that mean if they both say, like, well, we're not going to play Power 5 teams anymore? Well, then it leaves you in a little bit of a pickle, doesn't it, if you're some of these other schools out there that want to have a Power 5 opponent to bring folks to your stadium in week number 2, or to have the big bump on your schedule or whatever. So that's very interesting. And I know there's so much talk that's going on, whether it's the SEC or it's the Big Ten or whatever, about the future and about scheduling, and there's so much to figure out there. So that is an interesting little wrinkle for the Big Ten.
Ohio State has Notre Dame this year. That's not what they're talking about. In 2024 for them, this is a little bit, I'll use the word, a little bit softer than they normally would have. Southern Miss, with all due respect to these programs, West Virginia, Western Michigan, and there's Marshall, who beat Notre Dame last year. But then they have Texas for a couple of years in a row, Alabama for a couple of years in a row, and that's normally what they do.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen, like, you can say all you want, you're going to have softer non-conference schedules and all that, and maybe you try, because, like Craig said, it's not going to hurt you as much anymore, but eventually that stuff's all going to come out in the wash. And also, TV is driving this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Conference realignment is about making better games over everything else, because better games mean better ratings, mean all of that. So USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten because the TV muckety-mucks have decided that is what is a better. USC versus Michigan is better than USC versus Oregon State.
Yeah, and but is USC against Rutgers any better?
No, but if they can somehow, they're
not going to play. No. USC is they're not going to play Ohio State.
They're not getting
Michigan,
the Nebraska
Penn
schedule.
State.
Yeah, they're not getting the Nebraska
Welcome
schedule.
Welcome to the Big Ten, and now you're playing everybody that's ever won a national title.
No, but that's what they're trying to do while mitigating the lesser ones.
And by the way, I would love that. I would love that. Michigan, future schedules. Texas in 24, Oklahoma back-to-back, Texas and Washington. And that's normally what they do. I won't bring up any other Big Ten teams.
No, I think it's a little too early to have too strong of an opinion, because it's not anything that's solidified. It's basically an option you're going to have. So if you're Ohio State and you want to play Michigan, you want to play Texas, and you want to go then play Oklahoma, and you want to go play Miami or whatever, you have every right to do that.
Yep.
They're not preventing you from doing that. But what they are saying is they're open to the idea of that not being a requirement.
Right.
And so you don't have to if you don't want to. So guess what? If it would have been Baylor circa 2010 to 2015, they would have seen that requirement like, all right, we're just going to play 3 cupcakes and we're going to roll into the Big 12.
Play Buffalo.
We're going to go, we're going to play Buffalo. We'll play ACU and Texas State, and we'll be good to go for Big 12 play. And then there are others that, whether it's a rivalry, whether it's, just the history of that, or it's just wanting to pop a big attendance figure at the week 2, week 3 game, they might still, or just wanting, it's the coach's mentality that, no, we need a good week 2 game. We want a good week 3 game. We want to have this team go up against somebody who's pretty good. It's going to be their choice. So it's not like, the Big Ten's coming in and saying, we are forbidding you from playing this, or we're not allowing this to happen. No, it's whoever wants to do it the way they want to do it, that's fine. But for those teams that do want to take a bit of an easier path and say, well, that's one less difficult game on our schedule,
they
who
can
might
do that? The ones that may not be so sure they're going to get to a bowl game, which is what Baylor did when they didn't go to a bowl game for 16 years. USC 2024, LSU and Notre Dame on their schedule. 2025, Ole Miss and Notre Dame. They're going to always have a couple of those games, along with of course, what they're going to play in the Big Ten.
And I think the difference is that when you get to a certain point, what Baylor didn't do, and it's hard to schedule. It's not like if they did want to try and call and play someone that the other person still has to pick up the phone. But what they did not do is make a concerted effort to add some of those right away when they had the opportunity to. So that's where it looked bad, was where, okay, now your schedule has worked out for you. Let's see a better non-conference game. And then the response from, that was the previous athletic department administration, was always like, I don't think we're going to do that. Or like, maybe, we'll see. We'll work on it. Well, and so there's a little difference there. Yeah,
that's changed with BYU before they joined the conference. Now Utah, there's Oregon, there's Auburn. I am so thrilled with it. I love it. Well, they're doing that now.
And it's good for the FCS, schools, that if, the Big Ten doesn't have this rule against scheduling them as they did at one point in time, then that's terrific news that you can continue to play those types of teams, because I would think with the schedules, in theory, ramping up, and having maybe another game that's more difficult, or another couple of games that are more difficult, you're gonna love that FCS game, and the FCS teams are gonna love that payoff and the experience and all those types of things. So I think that's a good thing that will be in place for Big Ten teams, is to have the FCS opportunity, because I think it's equally important for the other side of it. Not so much it's important for Michigan to have that opponent. It's important for the FCS school that's getting to go to Ann Arbor to play a game and make some money. That's important too.
I would amend one thing about playing the FCS schools. I would like to see the FCS schools be the spring game exhibitions.
Are they going to make it? But they have,
and that can be your guarantee game.
They're not going to guarantee a spring game, are they?
Well, if you want $1 million, well, maybe I don't know. I don't like the guarantee games. I hate them. I know that they're important for that. I just think,
I'm just saying, you're not going to get the same money for a spring. I have always been not a spring game. I've always been, why don't they allow in college football? I remember I've asked every Baylor coach that's been here, why not have, like on the third week of August or second week in August, a scrimmage? What's wrong with that? Injury. Well, you can get injured anytime. You can get injured practicing against each other. So I've always wondered that. But I get what you're saying. But the FC, it's not because my alma mater, they don't survive without those non-conference games.
No, I was trying to give you a compromise, because you're going to sell tickets to a game that, like,
spring game.
Well, because there's only two options when you can do it. I mean, you're going to do it in the spring, or you're going to do it in right before the season. When else are you going to do it? You're going to do it in the fall? Well, oh wait, you got a schedule. You're going to do it after the season? Well, you got to have a little bit of buffer time. So I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, for those of us saying, well, that's great for the FCS schools, I know there's a lot of people not looking at it that way, and they hate that opponent. They don't want to play the FCS school in week 2. They want to play another big-time game and want to see another big-time game. So that's this interesting tug-of-war that's going to go on with this expanded playoff of, like, what is the right way to schedule? What is the best thing for everybody involved? And I know a lot of decisions will be just the best for who that person or the institution is involved, but there's definitely a split on whether there should be those types of games moving forward. And I'm sure the Big Ten saying that they're going to allow it, not that they love it, not that they're encouraging it, but that they will allow it to some extent. That's going to be a split, I think, opinion that you get back on that as well. So really, I guess it just depends on who you ask. Some people will love it, and some people will say, no, that should be another game against a big-time opponent instead. So
I'll give you an example. Colby Carthel hates him. He's the head coach at SFA. It's not that he doesn't understand money, budget, but at the same time, he said his team, by the time they get to mid-September, late September, to start playing conference games, they are just, and that's a pretty good school, pretty decent amount of roster and all that. He said they are beat the hell up.
And they've got FBS players that have transferred in a great deal of time. My point is the spring game conversation has been brought up by coaches. Gus Malzahn talked about it this year. Other ones have said, like, I would rather, it would be better if we could play, if we're going to do something, let's play a spring exhibition game. They'd be for it. So if coaches are for it, look, maybe you're not going to do $1 million. Of course, that could build up. You might be able to do $1 million because it might still be in your budget, and you're going to put more into the spring game. Plus, television would probably want it more.
You think would be curious how much the attendance would be for? I know that Nebraska fills the stands, and some, if UT has a coaching change, or they need to show some support, they'll even get a lot of people there. Oklahoma, but I wonder what the attendance would be if the attendances across the board would be much higher for a spring game than they are right now, when some schools just support it and some could say, okay, get it over with.
I can
At
tell
first,
you,
absolutely they would be.
Yeah, at first, yes. And two,
you think that Oklahoma's
television
spring
broadcast-
game against SFA?
Yeah. Two things. One, immediately, yes, because if Baylor had played SFA in this spring, whatever the heck they did over here, would have been a lot more interesting to people than being able to sit in the stands and try to follow along with a scoring sheet of offense versus defense
Yeah,
and
that's a little
whatever
frustrating.
coach games they're playing there. Way more interesting than that. It's also, and let's not forget about this part, television. So for the streaming and for all the spring games that you're watching, and you've got people, tons of them are on ESPN Plus. It's a lot better than, two guys just basically sitting talking over a practice, because that's all it really is. So if you have a spring game where the FCS teams are playing and there's at least a little bit of competition to it, way more interesting television all the way around, and way more interesting television means more money.
I still think a scrimmage in August would be more beneficial. But that's just my opinion. I'm not going to try to change your mind or your mind. I'm just giving you my opinion. From talking to coaches in the past, they would rather have it in August, but that could be changing now.
I understand, but I think we're getting in the mud on the point that you're making. It's not about whether it's in the spring or it's in the summer. It's just, I think in general, like Paul thinks it'd be better in the spring, you think it'd be better in the summer. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. The point being of just the attraction itself would be a draw.
I agree.
The attraction itself would be a bigger draw than green or gold at McLean with the funky rule system or whatever that you're talking about. If you say, it's Baylor versus, Lamar, that's not going to get people like super excited, but it's something that's better than the green and gold game. Or if it's Baylor UTSA, you're going to be like, hell yeah, they'd probably sell that bad boy out for a spring game with Baylor and UTSA, even if it's a glorified scrimmage or if it's in the summertime. So I think that's, something that was brought up. I mean, that's been brought up for years, the idea of doing something along those lines.
I have asked since Art Briles, my first year here, ask him that question. Yeah, I agree. It has been a topic.
Yeah, and it was this past, month or two as well, and we saw some articles written about that, so yeah.
Casey Thompson has found a home. This is not a surprise at all. Surprised that just maybe it took as long as it did. Former Nebraska and Texas quarterback reunited with Tom Herman at Florida Atlantic as he's transferred from Lincoln to Florida Atlantic. And I believe, and I don't know who it was, on the chat room even 2 or 3 days ago mentioned that might be the perfect landing spot for him. And he's now reunited, and Tom Herman has a quarterback along with what he else right now on his roster.
Well, look, he's familiar with Tom Herman and played for him for a few years. And look, at the end of it, if you want to go as a quarterback and play an offense where the coach is going to give you a lot to do, that's Tom Herman's offense. So
and Casey Thompson is sneaky, pretty good, not like a burner, but he's not bad about his mobility. He can run. His problem is he puts up a lot of numbers, but he also throws. He's always had issues with the interception. So good matchup there.
Yeah, I mean, a little reunion there makes sense. Casey Thompson had his shot at the Big 12 and Big 10 level, and didn't secure that spot and hold on to it. So he moved around once, and now he's moved around again, and hopefully this time he's found a spot that's actually good for him that he'll be able to settle into and be the clear guy and hopefully have some success for his sake. But I think there's a comfort level there. I would imagine with Tom Herman that would, help ease that transition. And, I hope he can find his bearings and, get the best out of him. But I think that's a good combination right there.
When we come back, a couple of comments from a text we received yesterday from the 515 about labels and college football, kind of going back to what Mike Oresco wrote and published yesterday. Also, NIL in the U.S. Senate and what it really is going on. We're going to have a guest in Brian Murphy who covers the East Coast and the ACC in that area. He's going to join us at 3:45 on exactly what all this means. Paul had a pretty good note about it, too, that we'll share. All of that and more. This is 365 Sports.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession?
We selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's Jeep season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are hot. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $5,500 in total values, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $5,000.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
So yesterday on the text line, I didn't get a chance to get to it, but saw it last night and decided to copy a couple of the comments from the 515. The first one, this is about Mike Oresco and Group of Five, Power Five, etc. The labels in conferences are silly. Games still need to be played. The Big 12 runner-up beat the Big 10 champion last year. College football is unique. We get wrapped up around labels so much. I have a wrestling background. The second a whistle blows, rankings, ratings, labels go out the window. Same thing with football, basketball, softball, baseball, men's and also women's sports. I think that's no question. It's like you don't, otherwise Vegas would be the standings, right? Whatever Vegas decides is who wins the game. There's no reason to play the game. Of course, we also know that they have odds to force you or want you to or tempt you to bet. But yeah, I appreciate that. We appreciate the text, and we appreciate anyone 254-339-1122 in the text line.
Yeah, I do think though that's not even. I think most people wouldn't even care if they just started calling it something else and moved on. But Mike Oresco is running dangerously close to the childhood rule of, look, if you all of a sudden have a nickname on the playground that you don't like, you better lean into it unless it's, it's a slur. But if they start calling you, stinky, well, you got to lean into stinky or it's going to stick.
What was it, Craig and Paul, that Mac said yesterday that Mike Oresco, when he was running the Big East before it became the American, wanted to call them as part of the Power Six. So he wanted to have that label when he was a part of the Big East. And now that's a little bit of a different view for him now that he's a part of the American Conference.
Well, things have slightly changed for him in his conference, haven't they? With some of these teams leaving, it's not quite the Power Six-looking conference it was when Houston was making a run towards, a great season or, any other number of great accomplishments the AAC has had. When especially they were at their best, going back to Cincinnati just here recently, Houston prior to that. They've had other moments in teams as well, but I just think thou doth protest too much is basically how that came across to me. I understand where it's really not that big of a deal, for one. It's really not a big deal at all what he said. There's no reason for any sort of extreme reaction in any direction. He felt strongly and felt that he needed to say something to defend his conference and to put something out there that hopefully people would glom onto enough to get the end result that he wants, which is to not be lumped into this non-Power 5 label. But unfortunately, I think that that's going to be a lot more difficult to do than just simply writing a letter that I don't know how many people even ended up reading. And the way that it was like I said yesterday, it was so long, and I'm a guy who loves to read, but it was so long for what you thought was just going to be like a press release or something. It's like, oh no, he went in depth on it. He went super into this, has been giving it a lot of thought. And I don't know how that really registered for most folks, but I understand his position. Like I said, though, thou doth protest too much is kind of how I felt about it after the fact. And, I don't think that, unfortunately for him, that's probably going away anytime soon. And like plenty of people pointed out, okay, well, it's the Power 2 then. And then guess what? You're still not in this. Now you're just not – you're right. You're not non-Power 5. You're non-Power 2 now. And, that's why I asked Mac Rhodes the question about the Power 2 and got his thoughts on that. But, yeah, I mean, that's just a guy fighting for his brand.
Christopher Shannon, he's doing what he's supposed to do, lobby for his conference. There is no question.
There's a difference between lobbying and bordering on writing a manifesto because that's what he did. That's what he did yesterday was like it was probably another 600 words from being manifesto.
Yeah, he had laid out his thoughts in clear fashion, and he had a lot of them. And yeah, I mean, like I said, for somebody that doesn't mind reading, it wasn't that big of a deal. But I know for most people out there who are just like, what's this comment this person made? And it's like you see all the 4 pages or however many it was. I don't know. I didn't count, but
2,500 words. It had
I just know that there's probably people that glanced at it and they were like, anyways, and just moved on to the next thing. So I don't know how big of a deal it even is, but I again admire him for doing what he should be doing in that position that he's in. He should be fighting for the American Athletic Conference. He should be fighting to make them as relevant as possible, and he should be fighting, whether it's an uphill battle that's unwinnable or not, to try and put them on even footing with as many of the quote-unquote bigger programs as possible. And that's harder than ever before because not only is he losing 3 brands that are massive brands for that conference when you look at their history, but losing money as a result of that and, losing a little bit of footing that they had gained with the Houstons and with the, UCF or with the Cincinnati or whoever's had their successes here. It's a tough pill to swallow. And, he's just doing what he can, but he's fighting from underneath for sure. And, maybe that's the only way he felt that he could really take a big swing. But unfortunately for him, I think it's going to take a lot more than that for people to change their perception of the non-couple of conferences.
My fault. The American Conference, if you look at the top level, Tulane last year beat USC in the Cotton Bowl, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. UCF, 5 years ago or so, made the run unbeaten. There was always really, were they worthy of playing for the national title? Fans say yeah, but others said no. I mean, it didn't happen. Unfortunately, that was 5 or 6, 7 years too early based on the playoff expanding. Cincinnati was in the semifinals just 2 years ago. So those are the 3 teams that were atop of the conference standings just then. So there we go. So they've had, and of course we know that UCF and Cincinnati are now gone. Houston also gone as they have moved into the Big 12. Coming up, we're going to have Brian Murphy from WRAL Sports. He's an investigative reporter for WRAL, but he also has really been focused in on the NIL and what going on in the U.S. Senate as far as should people who contribute to NIL be tax exempt. And we're going to, Paul, I want you to ask him the question you brought up earlier on how that reflects on politics and politicians who are trying to make this decision who get money from these same NIL businesses, et cetera. So we'll have that for you here in just a moment. Brett McMurphy today at 4. Mike Casasa, who covers West Virginia, at 4:30 today. Now, this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for a great deal, for great customer service, and for a great variety of new vehicles. They have been a dealership that I've relied on a couple of different times when I've had car issues, and I can say with 100% certainty that if I need something fixed up again, that is the place that I will be going to, even though I didn't buy my car there originally, but that's okay. Thanks to the customer service, I can imagine myself when I do need to get a vehicle, hopefully not in the too soon future, but too near future. But when I do, that'll be the place that I go and look because of the way they treated me the last time around. And right now, they've got the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class. You can step up to the astonishingly advanced 1500 Sierra Crew Cab and save $3,500 at Richard Carr. Well-qualified buyers can also get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days on most new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s in stock. And also, looking around the rest of the lot, ranked number 1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers. You got the Buicks offering a luxury line of SUVs with luxurious prices as well. You can experience the quiet escape and premium drive of a Buick on a test drive today at Richard Carr. Right now, save $3,000 on the 2023 Buick Enclaves, plus well-qualified buyers get 2.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. So those are a couple of the offerings as far as new vehicles go. They've also got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks, many of those under $20,000, and their award-winning customer service department standing by to keep you on the road if you're just looking to get your car fixed up and repaired. So if you want to go that route, not looking to buy, but looking to just get fixed up, or if you are looking to buy, a lot of questions can be answered by going and visiting their website, richardcarr.com. That's KARR.com. You can check out their service specials. You can see their prices. You can also set an appointment for quick and reliable service. So check out the company, the business that's been in this community for over 24 years now in Central Texas, building a reputation along the way as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
So earlier today, Brian Murphy, who's about to join us from WRAL, investigative sports reporter, had these tweets. Bipartisan U.S. Senate bill that would not allow people to get charitable tax deduction for contributions to compensate athletes for NIL. And then college athletes have the ability to benefit from opportunities related to their NIL. Outside organizations, collectives should not be able to write contributions off their taxes that are being used to compensate athletes. That's not from Brian, that's from John Thune, the senator, Republican senator from South Dakota. And then he mentioned that North Carolina State and North Carolina both offer tax-deductible donation options for those who are involved in the NIL. Brian joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig and also David Smoak. Brian, we've been down this road before. Do you think anything will change?
It's really hard to see this Congress, as divided as it is, passing a bill that deals with NIL. I mean, there are some larger bills that would deal with NIL. This is a very targeted bill. John Thune and Ben Cardin are both, key senators on the committee that would deal with this kind of stuff. And the fact that they introduced it last year and it didn't go anywhere kind of tells me that this probably isn't going anywhere. The fact that nobody else has signed on as a co-sponsor seems to be an indication that this probably won't go far.
It seems to be also opportunity. They had an NIL hearing on Capitol Hill a month ago, so try to get it back out in the ether, so to speak, Brian. But one of the other things, won't it be problematic to pass this, given that a lot of the people that it affects also make donations to politicians and don't want whatever tax they want to be able to do with their money, what they want to do with their money, and write off whatever they're supposed to be able to write off?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me at least to make sense that you wouldn't be able to write this off, but you can also write off a lot of contributions to athletic departments that then go to pay for fired coaches or contract extensions. So, this is a tricky space, I think, for politicians because of what you said. The same people that are often funding those campaigns are often funding athletic departments all around the country. And so this isn't like specific to a specific state or anything, this is I think it's something like 40 of the states have Division I football programs. So you're going to run into problems if you try to pass this in many states.
Brian, the NIL, of course, just hit everybody almost blindsided. It took forever, and then all of a sudden, here comes Katie bar the door. It's almost like the transfer portal. Do you see anybody getting close to putting their arms around it, or do you feel like it's still, for right now, the wild, wild west?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, they're moving in the opposite direction. So here in North Carolina, basically there's an executive order from the governor that kind of regulates NIL. There was a key senator, I wrote about this a couple weeks ago, a key senator said, hey, we need to get rid of that executive order. Other states are moving much faster and allowing way more stuff than we are, so we don't want that executive order to hold us back here in North Carolina. And so she said, we need to get rid of the executive order. So if anything, I think it's moving the opposite direction in the sense that some states, I think Arkansas, Colorado, are pushing the boundaries and saying, look, the NCAA can't even investigate NIL issues if they pop up in our state.
Yeah, Brian, so if that's happening at the state level and they're trying to do things at the national level, is this just window dressing when people say it because somebody's asked them about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in some ways, Charlie Baker, the new NCAA president, has even a better case, I think, to go to Congress and say, hey, we need a national law. If all these states are gonna race to the bottom, you could say, or race to the most lenient policy possible, he could say, look, we can't have 50 different states having 50 different policies. We need one national standard. Whether that flies in a Congress that I said is, it's bitterly divided. I mean, they've got more important things to do, I guess is probably the best way to put it, than worry about NIL at the moment. It's hard to see a sports bill getting the kind of traction it needs to get through the process at the federal level. And so, I mean, to me, it's up to the NCAA. Like, this is your job, right? Your job is to regulate college athletics. Come up with a solution, figure this out. And they've just been trying to punt to the national, to the federal Congress for the last year or maybe even longer.
Do you feel like Matt Baker will have at least a better puncher's chance because of his background? Charlie Baker. I'm sorry. Charlie Baker.
Yeah, the former governor of Massachusetts. He's a Republican. Obviously was able to work with Democrats in Massachusetts to not only get elected, but Democrats in the state legislature there. Sure, I think he probably has a better chance than Mark Emmert, who kind of became everybody's punching bag. But you run down the list of important issues for Congress, and I'm just not sure this hits the top 10 or the top 20 for very many, representatives. Senator Tuberville, a former college football coach, is trying to get a bill together with Joe Manchin. But that doesn't seem to be getting much traction either. So, and then there's a Democratic proposal that would be, guarantee athletes health care and be a much more pro athlete. And I can't see that getting through, the Republican House of Representatives. So it just doesn't seem like the political will is there. And then it doesn't seem like a political path is there either.
Brian Murphy with us, WRAL-TV, a sports investigative reporter. What are your takes on what we've seen the last couple of weeks with Alabama, baseball coach, and then Iowa State and Iowa? Probably just the start of what we might see more of when it comes to the gambling within college sports.
Yeah, I follow the sports gambling measures here in North Carolina very closely, and North Carolina may become the next state to legalize mobile sports gambling. And I think it cuts two ways. One, I think supporters of sports gambling will say, look, we only caught these things because the industry is regulated. And so, the Alabama baseball coach could have been placing these bets, and we never would have known about them if not for regulated gambling. And I think critics of this expansion of sports gambling will say, we're putting it in front of these kids day after day after day. It's impossible to ignore, and we're going to get more and more gambling happening. And that's a problem for us. So I think this issue really cuts both ways. I mean, it may also be time for the NCAA to address its gambling. I mean, it says you cannot gamble on anything. And so if you're a football player at the University of Iowa and you place a bet on the Super Bowl or you place a bet on the NBA Finals, that is against the rules. That's against the NCAA rules, even though it has nothing to do with your sport, nothing to do with your game. And so as gambling becomes ubiquitous around the country, does the NCAA have to come up with different lines to address this.
Brian, I did a segment on this, a top 5 segment yesterday, and it is going to be really interesting because right now they're starting to maybe turn away some of that money until they can get figured out. But I don't think that the college athletics can spurn DraftKings and FanDuel and whoever else pops up forever, and they're wanting to spend ad dollars with those places.
Yeah, I mean, some of these, Caesars, I think, had a deal with Michigan State and LSU, and they've sort of pulled back because of just how terrible that looks if guys are getting suspended for gambling and yet a gambling company is sponsoring your athletic department. On the other hand, as you guys well know, this is a never-ending search for dollars, and those gambling companies have lots of dollars to give. And so I don't know the answer. I mean, that's a really tough one, I think, for college administrators, for the NCAA to figure out, where is this line? If we allow these gambling companies to sponsor our stadiums and put their name all over our stadiums, then do we have to change our rules as to what athletes are allowed or not allowed to do? And that is having a bright line, no gambling on anything ever makes it pretty easy. If you start to loosen those lines, then I think it becomes even tougher.
We never thought, at least I never thought, there would be a college football playoff. We now have that. I never thought there would be a time, although it was long overdue, that athletes would get extra money for their value, right? Never thought we'd see an open transfer portal, so who knows? Maybe that will change a little bit the way the NCAA looks at gambling.
Yeah, and, it's not just the NCAA that has to deal with it. I mean, we've seen the NFL suspend Calvin Ridley. Now that they've suspended other players for simply placing a bet from the facility. I mean, gambling has come so quickly. The Supreme Court decision was in 2018. We're 5 years after that, and it's expanded to, I think, 38 states on the last count. It's come so quickly that I think it's caught the leagues and the NCAA a little bit off guard with how do we handle this. But yes, I think the NCAA has changed so rapidly over even a shorter period of time that I don't put anything beyond. If you told me in 5 years we only have 2 football leagues and players are employees and they can gamble, well, hey, okay, that makes sense. I mean, who knows? The NCAA is changing so quick.
Brian, one more thing on the ACC from where you are in Raleigh. Which school right now, or maybe schools in the ACC, I know Miami had their flair of dramatic when it comes to the NIL, but which schools in that Carolina area do you feel like have benefited the most? Is it Duke? Is it Wake Forest? Is it NC State? North Carolina? Who might that be?
Yeah, I'm not sure any of the schools here in North Carolina have done as well with NIL as some of the other teams, some of the other teams around the country. There hasn't been, North Carolina basketball, I guess I should take that back. North Carolina basketball has really benefited from it, or at least we thought they would. To get Armando Bacot back for another season, were able to bring back the entire core of the Final Four team. And I think NIL played a huge role in that. It didn't turn out so well. They were ranked preseason number 1 and then didn't make the NCAA tournament. So, be careful what you wish for. But I think on that side of things, North Carolina has had several, a women's basketball player has deals with Dunkin' Donuts and Beats and all of that. But, you look at what LSU's been able to do on the women's basketball side or the women's gymnastics side. You look at Texas A&M, you look at Miami. There hasn't been those kind of breakout performances from the schools here in North Carolina. If anything, the transfer portal combined with NIL, and I think those two go hand in hand, even though they're not related, has hurt North Carolina football. I mean, they've lost 21 players to the transfer portal from last year's team. North Carolina State's been a little better. Duke kind of swims in a different pond there, but Wake Forest lost its quarterback to Notre Dame. Is that something that would have happened before the transfer portal, before NIL? Probably not.
Brian, thank you very much. Appreciate you jumping on with us. Brian Murphy, WRAL-TV on the NIL in the Senate, and also many other, including iGaming or gambling or what else is out there when it comes to college athletics. We appreciate his time. When we come back, Brett McMurphy, Action Network, HQ, he joins us. He's the one, Brett, that had the story earlier today about the Big Ten and looking at what is a mandate or not when it comes to the non-conference schedule. What does that mean? And then do you think other conferences might join that fray as well. And just thoughts about various stories surrounding the landscape of college athletics and college football. And this is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff. They are phenomenal at what they do. You can be a business that has an MRI, and you could have a great staff, and they do. But you have to have elite, top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art technology, MRI, machine, and they do. I've been in it. I've seen the images. Doctors see it all the time. Other patients do too. And if you need to figure out what is hurting you, if your doctor suggests you need an MRI rather than an X-ray or something else that they've tried, IdealMRI.com is a great reason, a great place for you to be there. Two different reasons. One, the location, the technology, the staff, all the above. Fantastic. But also the cost. $497 or less for what averages over $1,100. Just that's the average. $497 for an MRI every single time. Not once, every single time. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. Dr. Rob Maxey, the staff, the specialists, those who say hi to you when you walk in the door, those who help you set up an appointment that will help you and your doctor at IdealMRI.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Brett McMurphy earlier today on the story involving the Big Ten future schedules. We've discussed that a little bit amongst ourselves and also with those of you in the chat room too. Brett McMurphy joins us on 365 Sports. Brett, thank you very much from Action Network HQ. So is this to protect people because they're adding USC and UCLA, or is this actually to protect those in the middle pack of the Big Ten so they can try to get to enough wins to get to a bowl game?
Yeah, I think it's to protect the middle tier and the bottom tier, if you will, because, they already have 9 conference games, obviously, but with USC and UCLA, there's more bodies to climb over, if you will, to get to the top of the league. And I think it's more for, this isn't for the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, et cetera. It's for basically everyone else to basically be able to schedule an automatic win, or at least you hope it's an automatic win. You can't lose those games, but we've seen those upsets. And so that can get you to, 6 wins, bowl eligibility, and keep the fan bases somewhat subdued until next year. But again, it's not a requirement. It's an option. You can play 3 Power 5s if you want. Mm-hmm. Nobody's in the non-conference. Nobody's that stupid except West Virginia. So I don't think I don't know if we'll see much change or not. But it's funny, they've kind of had this. They've actually had this requirement, for the last several years. But then it wasn't. But then they kept granting exemptions to this rule, where basically a team would go, well, hey, we're playing Cincinnati. Does Cincinnati count? And this is before Cincinnati got the college football playoff, and the Big Ten would say, okay, well, they raised this much value as far as TV markets and that sort of thing. So like, okay, they count. Okay, BYU, they count. Even UConn counted at one point. So it is surprising to me because I actually thought with the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams that we actually would see more Power 5 non-conference matchups because in theory you can lose those type of games and you're not eliminated from making a 12-team field. You lose those games in a 14 field, and you greatly decrease your odds. So, like anything else in college football, college athletics, it's, you don't have to wait so long until it changes. So we'll have to see what happens. I do know a lot of people kind of looked into this and kind of, in their opinion, they thought, hey, here's this makes it look like the Big Ten's going to 10 games. Conference games, from people I talk to, they're going to stay at 9 because if you add 10, then you're guaranteeing an additional loss for 8 of the teams in the conference, and that's hard to swallow. So I think if you keep it at 9, you can schedule your group of 5s. You can add a FCS program in there, which ironically in 2024. Future Big Ten member USC will be the only school in the country that has never, ever played an FCS opponent because Notre Dame will play an FCS opponent last year. Them USC were the last 2 standing.
Brett, how much of this, though, could change after the first 2 years of this where everything could get thrown into flux all of a sudden?
Absolutely. I mean, at that point, the conference memberships could be drastically changed. The Big Ten could be on 16 schools. The SEC could be beyond 16. Again, they can change anything on a dime if they want. But, obviously this was a good time frame for them to do this with the Big Ten going up to 16 schools in 2024. And, again, for scheduling, they want to give out as much advance notice as you can, because for some strange reason, these schools and athletic directors love to schedule games, literally, I'm going to guesstimate here, about 40 years in advance. Is that about right, guys? So, it's they want to give them as much notice as possible. But certainly if there is a drastic change in conference membership, they would obviously change that, revamp it, do whatever they need to do.
Brett, what did you think about as we get into this world where there's clearly separation that's occurring all over the place? It's just to what extent we don't quite know yet. I know the FCS schools, there's mixed feelings from those coaches on how much they love the payday and the butt whooping most of the time versus how much better it actually makes their teams. But speaking of separation, Mike Oresco and his comments on the American Athletic Conference and the letter that he sent out yesterday, we talked a bit about it. Just what were your thoughts on the Power 6? No, it's not the Power 5. No, it's not any power label whatsoever. Where did you kind of stand on what he had to say?
How much longer can you interview me? Because that's how long I will go off on this.
As long as you want, man.
I will make it brief. So the first time he did this, I think he did this back in the end of March, if I remember correctly. And it was a lot shorter, but basically said there shouldn't be any Power 5s. And I tweeted something like, isn't this ironic that, the guy who was pushing that his league was a Power 6 and he put it on the first down chains and he put it on the field and he had all these logos made up and yada, 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 is the guy who now says, well, we shouldn't have these designations. And, I guess he's right. And so I vow from this point forward, as I tweeted yesterday, I will only refer to the conferences as the Power 2, which is the Big Ten, SEC, the middle three, which are the remaining former Power 5 school conferences, and then there's still the Group of 5. I think Mike wants it to be the Power 2 and everyone else because he wants to say that they're on equal footing. And again, can any team in the American beat any team and in any other conference? Absolutely. But this is not about on the field wins and losses. This is about power. This is about how much your media rights deals are worth. This is how much you're worth to the college football playoff. This is how attractive you are to bowl partners. I mean, that is the power. It's not whether you can win or lose on the field. But yeah, he dropped a 2,600 word open letter yesterday. I don't know if any of you guys had any background in writing, but you probably would have got paid a lot if you wrote a 2,600 word article. Your editor would have chopped it in half. So all I know is by the time I got done reading it, I think 3 more schools announced they were leaving the league. So, look, another former reporter, a former reporter I know used to cover the Big Ten. He said Woody Hayes, this is a great line. Woody Hayes basically had a way of calling it, kind of how the conferences are now. The Power 2, which is basically all the starters flew on one plane, and the rest of the plane was AO, all you others. So maybe that's how we should refer to the conferences now, the Power 2 and AO, all you others. But yeah, I know I've rambled on almost as long as Mike Oresco's letter, but I thought it's a joke. It's hypocritical. You can't claim you're Power 6 one year and then the next year come back and say, hey, There's no Power 5, there's no Group 5, we're all equals, hogwash. There's a reason why conferences, bowls, playoff pay more for some schools more than another, and that's the reality. There's a totem pole, there's a pecking order, and right now, the American is basically Conference USA.
Yeah, Mac Rhodes brought up the Power 6 reference to the Big East when Oresco was running the Big East before the transition. Brett, we are still waiting, and I know it's a story that just never ends, and hopefully one day it will with the Pac-12. Let me ask you this. This is just somewhat hypothetical, and I'm not trying to stir it up, but I'm curious. Right now, it appears as if what they're waiting on is some sort of legitimate deal that whatever percentage is Apple Plus and the other percentage is linear. Do you ever see a scenario when the Big Ten would ever again look at Oregon? Not again. Would they look at Oregon and Washington if somebody from the Pac-12 was to leave for the Big 12?
First, kudos for, I don't want to stir it up, but I appreciate that line of questioning.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stir it up, but no, look, this is what I've said for several months. Probably the last time that I talked to you guys, and I keep hearing this. This is if, but this is a big if. But if Colorado or Arizona, who, as of we talk right now at 4 p.m. Central Time, they appear the most likely candidates to lead the Pac-12 for the Big 12. Mm-hmm. Does that mean they're going to do it? Absolutely not. Could they do it? Absolutely. If they do that, again, that's a big if. If they do that, I've been told by people that I trust that at that point, the Big Ten could take a harder look at Oregon and Washington, because at that point, Oregon and Washington would not that they're not desperate now, but they would be even more desperate at that point to get out of the league. They could get Oregon and Washington for even a smaller share until they gradually ramp them up to a full share. And again, the only reason the Big Ten would do it is they have to be, financially it has to make sense as far as the TV market. I'm told that the Big Ten and Fox do not want to have blood on their hands from they're the reason that the Pac-12 blew up. So in a way, they're kind of sitting back to see what happens with Colorado and or Arizona. If they go to the Big 12 and that opens the floodgate, then I think you would see Oregon and Washington come in. Now, would it be in 2024? I don't know if it could be done that quickly. I do know, I reported this last August or December, it all runs together, that they had had in-person meetings with the Big Ten. I've been told they basically have been vetted. They have been cleared. They are ready for takeoff. All the questions have been answered about Oregon and Washington. It's just when and if the Big Ten decides they want to add those schools. Now, what makes that even more complicated is if Colorado and Arizona don't do anything and stay in the Pac-12, and you guys have seen the speculation about any of the teams from the ACC decide to try to climb over the wall and get out of the grant of rights before 2036 and are successful, then the Big Ten certainly would look at a number of ACC schools, and so that could impact Oregon and Washington. So that would be another reason for Oregon and Washington to try to get out as soon as possible. You didn't ask me this, but I'll just bring it up. I know a couple weeks ago I was in Arizona and Dennis Dodd reported ESPN was no longer part of the Pac-12 dealings. I think The Athletic and Sports Illustrated reported the opposite. What I've been told is that ESPN is going to always talk to the Pac-12. If they can get something for pennies on the dollars, they are going to do it. So technically, they are never out of the running for the Tier 1 rights. If they can get the Tier 1 rights for chump change, they will do it, okay? Realistically, that's probably not going to happen at the price the Pac-12 wants. Now, I was also told that for the same example I gave you with the Big Ten not wanting the Pac-12's blood on their hands, ESPN feels the same way. And so basically when Dennis's report came out, my understanding is that, ESPN does not want to be viewed as breaking up a conference or blowing up a conference. And so that's, I think, why you saw conflicting views on this, is because at the end of the day, ESPN doesn't want to, want it, the perception that they blew up the league. And I want to be very clear. They're not responsible for what's going on in Pac-12. So, but they also don't want it to look that way. But it reminds me of, and I was at ESPN when this happened, when the Big East had a monster TV deal offer from ESPN. The Pac-12 had actually just got a monster deal, I believe, with Larry Scott. Boy, the good old days. And this is, I think, 2013, 14, 15, around then. The Big East turned down this monster TV deal at the time because they thought they could get more money based on what the Pac-12 got. Well, guess what? ESPN said, okay, you don't want this deal? Fine. Then you go find something else, because the Big East wanted more money. So the Big East went and they signed a deal with NBC Sports. And because ESPN had the previous rights, ESPN had a right of refusal. That meant that whatever deal that the Big East got, ESPN could match it or they could just let them go. So when the Big East came back to them with this new deal from NBC Sports, it was actually less money that ESPN initially was going to pay him that the Big East turned down. So then when ESPN said, wait, NBC Sports is paying you this much? Then ESPN decided, well, if it's for that small amount of money, then we will retain your rights. Could something similar to that happen with the Pac-12? It's very possible. But, I kind of been all over the map with your question here.
No.
But basically, that's I'm trying to kind of sum everything up with kind of how these reports come out with Pac-12, how the negotiations are going. And one last thing, I know you guys are well aware of John Olerand and Andrew Marchant, the New York Post Sports Business Journal. They did a podcast today, actually came out, and they had a reference to what was going on with the Pac-12 and a lot of the same things I'm hearing. Amazon, is probably not going to be a partner because they just want one game. They're not going to get the top game. I've heard from people that I trust these people very much. I've had people tell me Apple is no longer part of the Pac-12 deal. I've had people tell me Apple definitely is part of the Pac-12 deal. We will not find out. But one thing that jumped out at me, it just kind of simplified things, is Andrew Marchant of the New York Post, who's a sports media reporter. That's his only duty. Is he said the thing about the Pac-12 is they've said a lot of things that have not been true. And I guess he's talking about media that covers the Pac-12, Pac-12 presidents, and all these different things. So until we actually see what the Pac-12 is going to get, and I guess, the latest from the Washington State president is it's still, a couple months off, then we're not going to know what happened. But if Colorado or Arizona decide to make a move before they get the numbers to the Big 12, then all hell breaks loose.
Brett, I've asked this to a couple of different people because I'm curious on their answer to this question. Do the Pac-12 leaders, they may know in reality that USC and UCLA and therefore that LA television market is gone, but do they believe it to be different? Like, have they accepted the fact that your conference is not the same without them? Because it appears to me in some regards that they are moving forward as saying, like, yes, we understand that they're gone, but nothing should change.
Yeah, I mean, presidents, for the most part, don't deal with their athletics unless there's a huge issue or put out a fire or something like that. So I don't necessarily think the presidents are looking at it that way. I do know from someone that I talked to that's pretty plugged in and has a good source at one of the remaining 10 Pac-12 schools. They had somebody tell them, again, sometimes everyone gets so down in the weeds with all this stuff where sometimes just the simplest answer is usually the best answer. And basically, they had somebody at Pac-12 school tell them, look, should we stay in the Pac-12 and do what we can to stay in the Pac-12 and make the best of it, or should we go to the Big 12 because what's left in the Pac-12 is not the Pac-12 that we joined. There's no USC, there's no UCLA. There could be San Diego State, SMU, Colorado State, Tulane, New Mexico. Pick your flavor of the month. It could be joining the league. So that's something that these schools and presidents got to decide. You know, how long do we keep holding on to this Pac-12 when in reality, you brought up a great point, you know, you're no longer in LA. And yeah, you can bring in San Diego State. They're a fine program, but they're not the LA market. They're different. They're not the same. If they were the same as USC and UCLA, they would have been in the Pac-12, 20 years ago. They're not. That's reality. That's not me being negative against the Aztecs. That's reality. When we talked about, Resco and the pecking order, there's a pecking order, and there's a reason San Diego State is not in a Power 5 conference. So, these presidents have to look at a lot of different things. It's difficult to make this decision. And the other thing, kind of unrelated but related, is I notice whenever a university president makes a public statement or does an interview and they talk about how committed they are to the Pac-12 and, everything's going to work and we want to stay in our league and everything like that, everyone's like, okay, nothing's going to happen there. He just said it. And I'm like, wait a second. You guys, this sounds exactly like an athletic director supporting his coach the day before he fires it. Mm-hmm. All of these university presidents are 1,000% committed to their conference until they're not. And so what do you expect them to say? Oh, by the way, we love it in the Pac-12, but in a month and a half, we're leaving the conference. No one's ever going to say that. So it's just funny, but it's on social media. I'm blown away by the responses of the Pac-12 and the Big 12 fans. It's become almost as toxic as Republicans and Democrats trying to determine if the sky's blue or not. So I just want. I could care less what happens. I just want something so it's final. We know who's going to be in what conference, and let's move forward.
Yeah, I mentioned that it's the only thing I've ever seen where you draw a line in the sand for red states and blue states other than Congress or politics, and you're right on that. You mentioned litigation, and the Big Ten, of course, has USC and UCLA. And, Brett, I know you have to go, and we appreciated your time. We appreciate your time. Do you feel like with the Big Ten or would either of the networks of ESPN and Fox, would they have any issues with litigation or have to worry about litigation, or even the Big 12, since there's this thought that they're trying to basically just pick away at the Pac-12? Or is that just the Big Ten because of what they've already done, not need to be the one that does it again, at least immediately until somebody else does?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything that the networks have to worry about. I mean, look, all the realignment that's happened over the past 20 years, we would have seen something at this point. The only litigation is going to be if Team A is leaving Conference A to go to Conference B. The litigation is how much is it going to take to get out. If an agreement can't be made, then there would be litigation. I don't think, obviously, that wouldn't happen with the Pac-12 because their grant of rights ends after the 2023 season. Where it could come into play, and there's going to be some lawyers, in the Southeast, they're going to make a boatload of money, is if and when some ACC schools try to get out of that grant of rights before 2036, there's going to be, over under on lawsuits is probably, the number of, passing yards for Bryce Young last year. I mean, it's going to be crazy, all the stuff that'll be flying around. But that's usually just between the conference and the schools. I don't see anyone. Even if you wanted to litigate against a network, you're suing basically the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, no,
it's going to pay you money. So you kind of deal with it and kind of move on.
It's not like when Bowlesby did the cease and desist for ESPN and the American or whoever it was, because they were fighting for their absolute last breath at the time, and it worked. It actually worked. But, yeah, at the same time, they still ended up with a deal with ESPN, an extension. But, yeah, that's a dangerous play without a doubt. Hey, Brett, great stuff. I know we took a lot longer than I asked you to be on with us. We appreciate your time, and maybe before we get to the early part of the summer, which is just around the corner, there will be an end, whatever that is, with the other conference looking for a TV deal in the Pac-12. Thanks for your time.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ.
Yeah, we covered a lot there, and really interesting. I mean, there's just this could have been any of the conferences that have lost people over the last few years, but the Pac-12 did find themselves in the worst possible time for all this, where it's just hard for me to see, even if they stick together now, given what is constantly going on, a reasonable way forward for them to be the same or even close to what they were in the past when this comes around again.
I just can't believe that Brett made all that up.
Yeah, there'll be a response. There will be that.
No, I had envisioned like an old Wild West gunfighter after they shoot their shots and the smoke's coming out of the barrel and just, blow the smoke off the barrel. That's kind of what I envisioned him doing after he hangs up the phone. It's just like, firing all that out there. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good information, a lot of, stuff that we've heard or maybe not so much. And yeah, I'm with you though, Paul. Like that to me is why, a few days ago we talked about the grantor rights aspect of this. To your point, I mean, that's the part there, just the whole trust factor and the longevity of this all is where I would be like worried about the cracks not really being able to go away entirely no matter what you do. I mean, because the only way to like smooth any cracks over, you think, would be a super satisfactory deal, but since that doesn't appear like that will probably be the case. Now, satisfactory, sure, possible. Super satisfactory, like everybody's got a full stomach and is warm and cozy, that's not on the horizon, it doesn't look like. So, yeah, if you are these schools who are kind of, you're like, it sucks because you're just waiting and waiting in some cases, not really knowing if an offer's coming your way or if it's not. The ones, at least, the two schools we keep talking about that could really crater this whole thing, just how long are you on that leash? How long are you on that line before you just throw your hands up and you're fed up with it? But right now, it's too early to be in that position. And looking at the way college athletics is going, you're certainly in no rush to be like, no, we're just going to ignore the Big Ten if they came calling. And we're going all in with the Pac, baby. 10-year grantor rights. That's just not realistic. So to me, this whole thing about how much the money is and all that, I've been really just wondering about the grantor rights aspect of it and what does it cement, if anything, and for how long, and does it, fill the stomachs enough to where all of this goes away? It doesn't appear there's anything coming down the pipeline that's going to do that. So yeah, that remains an underlying issue, if not an outright public issue, and how that plays into this is very interesting stuff.
Yeah, appreciate a lot of you on the chat room on your thoughts on the interview at the time with Brett. Craig's analogy was great about the gunslinger. Bob Kramer, interesting interview. Thanks, guys. Also, Juan throwing his comments in on it as well. And then here's one that was interesting. Where is it? It was from Lorenzo. You guys like setting college sports on fire.
No, that's not true at all. We're
it's
here.
Just so emotional, for everybody. Yeah.
Look, I'm not sitting here with kerosene and a match, like waiting for something. I'm watching a fire burn and just I'm not the fire. We're not the fire department, right? We are bystanders in this. So there's a fire's already burning. College football's on fire.
We've had guests.
We're just sitting there going,
Yeah, and it's just so emotional, and it's just a never-ending story, and who knows whenever that timeline might get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, it's...
Correct, goddamn.
I just think that it is an interesting story because it covers a lot of bases and a lot of fan bases and a lot of different bases of just, the various interest levels and the inner and outer workings and behind the scenes of college football and general things like the structure of it's just so all-encompassing, right? Because of where we are in the timeline of college athletics is like there could be 2 things going on. There could be 200 things going on, like as a result of this, or after effects, or what have you. I mean, everything could be touched to some extent, and so that, and there's just everybody's involved to some other extent as well. Granted, there might be half of the country out there that is safe and secure and locked away, and they're not too worried about it. But for anybody in the ACC right now, this is what you're thinking about. For anybody in the Pac right now, this is what you're wondering about. Or anybody in the Big 12, this is what you're wondering about. So it covers a lot of bases. And even still, I don't trust the SEC just sitting on its hands for one single second. I don't know about you guys.
When they get quiet,
they might be the most active for all we know. And we know the Big Ten's involved, at least in the talk about it. So it touches a lot of bases, like I said. And it's just an interesting topic, although it can be, depending on what side you are on any given day, it can be a frustrating topic for sure.
Were you using that lighter because we're about to go into a rock concert or something like that, and it's going to turn the lights out?
No, I just, you said that, and I reached down in my bag of trinkets here and pulled this out. I didn't even know if I had one for sure, but it was great timing.
When we come back, he covers West Virginia. We told you about the discipline for Bob Huggins, the Hall of Fame coach at West Virginia. We will hear from somebody who's written the story about it. That's next. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, their weekly specials, and every week right now until the season ends, live crawfish at just over $3 a pound. They have 30-pound sacks of live crawfish. There's some dudes now, and you can get that at Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco. 30-pound sacks at just over $3 a pound. Order by, you have until 6 o'clock on Wednesday, so an hour and a half today. Pick up anytime after 4 Fridays or throughout the time they're open on Saturday. And they don't have just the crawfish. They have the corn. They have the red potatoes. They have the oil, whatever you need for whatever you're going to do as far as they have the big pots if you want when it comes to a crawfish boil. Sausage, yes, they have that too. Also, right now, they have pork steaks on sale for $1.99 a pound. Bacon ends and pieces, $1.50 a pound. Chicken tenders, $2.25 a pound. Boudin. That's been a popular topic of who likes it or not in the chat room at $2.99 a pound. A frozen pound of fresh chorizo, $1.99 a pound, and 15% off all fresh shrimp. They have large alpha, big, large, even Devane with the tails on only shrimp if that's what you want for your crawfish foil too. Ribeye, choice, select, and prime ribeye steaks from $10.99 to $23.99 a pound. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Before we get to Mike Casasa of 247 Sports covers West Virginia, Emery, where are we on the subs? 300? Is that right? We're about 300 subs away from 30,000 here on 365 Sports. That was at 0 back when we started in April of 2020. We appreciate those who have not subscribed. We appreciate you if you would. Now joined by Mike Casasa. Thank you for your time, Mike. 247 West Virginia. Did West Virginia University get it right today?
First question, which is superior, 24/7 Sports or 365 Sports? We'll have to figure this one out.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
Did they get it right? I would say they did not get it wrong. There's degrees of right. You're certainly not going to make enough people happy here to keep everybody quiet one way or the other. Perhaps especially when the individual in the middle of it all is Bob Huggins, who on this campus in this state is, gubernatorial. He could really run for office and win the big one here. So that's kind of like a Rushmore figure when it comes to the history of athletics at the school, based on his playing career and now his coaching career. So, you're going to have people who are like, you absolutely can't touch this guy. And if you do touch him, it's too much for someone like him who's done as much as he has. And then you're going to have, the academic types of the university, or people who are not as invested in in athletics as maybe a layperson is. And they're just going to see the words and know that the impact it may and can have on the affected communities there, and think that it doesn't matter who this guy is and what he's done. What he said is painful and detrimental to the university, and he's got to go, or what they've done is not enough. I think that they probably landed as close to the happy medium as they can. I'm surprised there's not more games. I'm surprised it's as much money as it is. And I'm surprised that people are looking over his contract, and especially, his golden parachute was severely altered. So his future is, I would say, uncertain right now, and that was not the case just 3 days ago.
Would you say that means he's kind of on a year-to-year review now?
That's absolutely what it is. He kind of was before. He had to inform his athletic director by May 1st of 1 year if he was going to coach not the following season, but the season after. So that's quite a runway. Quite a cushion. That's basically on May 1st. You're getting 2 more years if you think about it, because you're already going to get that next year coming up. So by May 1st of 2023, he had to commit to, the 2024-2025 season. That never happened because there's an athletic director transition here, and they're doing a whole bunch of different things, and Bob Huggins isn't going anywhere, and he's going to be here next year. But now you have a guy who was under contract through the 26-27 season, who is now under contract through just the 2024 season. So that's a big, big change for somebody who, not only was he going to be the coach for 2 more years, but for 2 or 3 years beyond that, he was going to be in an emeritus position, which means ambassador, run around, do fundraising, be the face of a cancer hospital here in Morgantown. By the looks of it, that stuff's out the window right now. It might come back in. We'll see. He can earn that back through this rehabilitation course they've plotted out, but he still has to do that. It's not there right now. And again, that's not the case 3 days ago.
Mike, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people pointing out, well, if he wasn't as winning of a coach as he was, or if he didn't have this recruiting class coming in or whatever, and that's understandable, but any sense of, ramifications roster-wise or incoming player-wise on if this is something that, makes guys go, or changes minds, anything along on that front, I suppose?
Yeah. So incumbent players have heard pretty harsh things from Bob Huggins.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to equivocate or make light of what he said, but he is not known to be like the Queen's English when it comes to coaching and games. And there are people, frankly, in the university who have just been kind of embarrassed sometimes by the language they've heard from behind the bench. But that sometimes comes with the whistle and the clipboard too. What happened Monday is not part of the job description for sure, and it's not anything that's acceptable. But I think a lot of people who are not surprised by this have witnessed something like this before. I mean, again, maybe not the words, maybe not the rhetoric specifically, but they've heard him say some things. I don't think it runs off anybody here. Transfer portal closes tomorrow. They have a roster of 13 players on scholarship, a couple of people who would have been in line to play this year, if not for the transfers they brought in, who have really bumped them down the bench and made their life a little bit more difficult as far as getting minutes next year. They're not going anywhere now, and this isn't going to make them more likely to go anywhere. I'm sure that coaches could use it against them in negative recruiting, but they've been doing that to Bob Huggins for years at various different schools. I don't think that'd be anything new. And this is such a public thing right now that I don't know that anybody could say something that's beyond the headlines as far as like what it might inflict to the reputation of the university. So the bad part's already out there, and it's very bad. But what are you going to tell a college basketball player right now that is worse than what they've actually seen the last couple of days? They're hoping to change the talking points to give them more human and redemptive things to talk about, again, through this rehabilitation program they've plotted out.
Mike, only Bob Huggins knows what he's learned. It's his life that he is living. We've always really kind of had a soft spot for him, even though he's kind of got that intimidating look and stuff. But we've been in enough press conferences with him, seen enough about him. When will he be in front of the public again? When will that happen? Is there going to be that, or is this just going to be kind of a simmering and just kind of let this thing calm down or simmer for a little bit?
It's interesting. He was supposed to be doing, they call it the Mountaineer Athletic Club, their coach's caravan. That's like a rubber chicken fundraising circuit. They were supposed to have events Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. They pulled him out of the ones this week. They said he had a scheduling conflict, but the scheduling conflict was, we need you to do anything else but be on the stage. So he did, and he's out of a public eye right now. My understanding from talking to people who have come across him or know him, he's really down about this, and I'm sure that you expect to hear a lot of that stuff too. But very thoughtful person. I'm sure he's stung and embarrassed by this, and that those words that he put out there are probably true. I do not expect him to come out and do anything that is like a sit down, clear my name, like a 60 Minutes or an Oprah Winfrey thing. I don't think you'll see anything like that. This is a guy who, guys, we're still waiting on the news conference celebrating his Hall of Fame induction. Like, we never had one here because he's not into that. And I don't think he's into, how can I fix this by some artificial microwaved quick healing process. Let me get out there and take some questions. Let me get out there and sit down with a community leader from an LGBTQ group. And I don't think that's him. I think he's going to do what's been prescribed. I think he'll be curious and authentic about it. And if not, they pretty much established zero tolerance. But I would suspect that the next time he's with media, it is going to be at a basketball function, which right now, I would imagine that they are supposed to make a trip overseas to Italy this year. Typically when they do that, it's every 4 years. So it's really not a routine, but typically when they do that, they'll have a press conference before they go and when they come back. So you're talking like maybe late July, mid-August. That would not surprise me at all. And in the meantime, he'll be doing what he's been asked to do and made to do behind the scenes quietly without cameras, but just doing it for his own personal comeback here.
Did you go to sleep either of the last 2 nights thinking that he would be gone?
Not once, but last night it was more toward the middle than I thought it was. Tuesday was a bad day for them. They had pride groups, they had ACLU groups, they had 3 or 4 different organizations that are mentioned in a press release today that they came out and said he needs to go, he needs to resign, he needs to not be back as a coach. Some said, if he is, we don't agree, but he needs to be in the community doing things. He has to work with these marginalized groups that he has spoken so poorly of here. And again, they spoke up, which I think is maybe expected, but also a little bit brave. And it comes with a reward, which is that the university mentioned them. So their outreach got the university's attention. They're being included in what happens now. I thought if they had more days like that, if it looked like that they were just going to stick their head in the sand and hope this blew over, I and others who were, again, under that umbrella, they really thought that it was going to be harder and harder for them to keep them. The sooner they fix this, the better. The longer it went on, I think the more you were going to see people getting dug in. There are people in significant organizations within the university infrastructure who said, if he comes back, I will step down, I will resign, I will quit. And there are people who said, if he's not back, I'm out of here too. So you had people on both sides of the fence with some influence, and they had to figure out how to get it back on the road and going in the right direction. It took some time, and they were able to keep it from going, I think, in a way that Bob Huggins didn't want it to go. But I don't think this is nearly as clean a slate or a whitewashing of the events as people maybe initially thought would happen, but it's also not a termination.
Ren Baker, welcome. He, of course, we've known him. He's at North Texas, and he's got connections with Mac Rhodes, the AD at Baylor. But Ren Baker had to face something pretty quickly, 5-6 months into his tenure as the AD at West Virginia. But this also probably came above him, too, right, at the presidential level with Gordon Gee?
Sure. This became the president's office. This became human relations. This became the diversity, equity, inclusion office. This became the legal apparatus. This became fundraising. Became a lot more than just Ren Baker. He's in charge of the room, and he's in the room when it comes to athletics. But this time he was in the room with people who were in charge of the university, who were in charge of that wing of the university. So he was a spoke on a wheel, but a pretty important spoke here. And I think he was making sure that this went in a direction that he wanted, but I also think that he made sure that his input was heard on stuff too. And I suspect he was one of those people who said, suspension, understand, but let's also remember none of these players, none of these fans did this. So to what extent do you punish them for something that happened on a Monday in May at noon?
Mike, really good. Great segment with you today. Thanks for your time. We appreciate the insight from Morgantown and also covering West Virginia. We appreciate your time from 247 Sports. Really good, very good, in-depth what was going on the last 48 hours involving Bob Huggins and also West Virginia.
Yeah, and, I guess we'll find out if they got it right or not, in the future. But, I think they did the closest to the best right thing that they could do. I mean, they could have given him some more games on the suspension. I think that one, 3 games was a little light on that. But then you like you said, $1 million is a lot of money. And then you're now on a year-to-year thing. You've lost your emeritus. So there's more to it on the surface than a lot of people who would just read the –
Yeah, people on the surface, 3 games is nothing, dude. Yeah. That is absolutely that's less than a week of games. I mean, not in conference play necessarily, but like early on in the season, you could be in a tournament, you could play 4 or 5 games. Mm-hmm. I mean, so he could miss less than a week in theory, right there at the very beginning. I don't know what their schedule looks like. And when you say $1 million for a coach who's been in the game for as long as he has, making big money, I know that's a lot of money. It's money that I'll never see, but that also isn't, just financially. It's like the billionaire was fined, $100,000, or $2 million. Like, what is that? Ultimately. So I say that because I know that there will be people that just see those and just roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, is that it?" But there is more to it than just that. And quite frankly, outside of firing, nothing was going to be good enough for some people. Outside of like a full, whatever the other direction, a full, mea culpa was not going to be good enough. I mean, nothing was going to make everybody happy in this situation. So I think that they tried to do the best they could do. And yes, they wanted to hang on to their Hall of Fame basketball coach. I think we'd all be fools to pretend otherwise. But, let's see what he does with it. So people deserve chances. I don't think it's just like you're one and done in life, although we're kind of trying to go down that route. And sometimes it applies. Sometimes I do think there's something egregious enough that, you should be a one and done. But in his case, I think there is room there to be a little open-minded and feel like this is the better route than just saying, all right, let's burn it all down and then pretend like it never happened, And so we'll see. It's all in his hands now as to what becomes of it from this point on. And just like it was all out of his mouth to begin with, he started it and he'll be the one to close it for better or worse, and hopefully it's for better.
Here's the thing. You can sit there and fine him. You could have been $100,000. You can sit there and take away his emeritus. You could take him from not coaching 3 games or 5 games. The penalty is what he's dealing with, and a lot of that, it's earned what he's dealing with, but that's the penalty, more than games or dollars or whatever, in my opinion, of what he himself personally is having to deal with. He could be sitting back going, my God, it may not sleep for a few days, and then again, it might just be like, water on a duck's back. I don't think that's the case with Huggins. You don't know, but there's a lot more than just the money, the games, etc. But I in this day and age, not many people survive when things are said the way they were. And Bob Huggins now moves on and tries to do, I guess, educate not only himself, but also perhaps help educate others around him. All right, when we come back, we have the 5 o'clock hour. John Machota, in about 35 minutes or so, covers the Cowboys in the NFL. The schedule being leaked out. We'll have some of that. Paul Catalina's top 5 in a little bit less than an hour. And this is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco, a hidden gem. If you are a fan like me of bourbons and craft bourbons, and I'm not trying to knock the big brands, they're also delicious. They have those there as well. But if you are looking for something that's different, that's maybe local, that's Texas crafted, I'm a big fan of that wherever I go. If I'm in a different state, I like to try what they make there that maybe I can't get. So if you're a fan of locally crafted Texas bourbons, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, you cannot beat it. They're also working on their second location, which means another spot for more great variety of products that they have there. But I love to go in and just check out what they have. There's always some kind of different brand, some kind of different, flavor of a brand that I like. I've tried a lot of them. I haven't tried them all, but I've tried a lot of them, and I will continue to do that at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street. Also available on DoorDash, a great speedy drive-through window. The customer service out of this world and easy to find. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
It's Jeep season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals on Jeeps are hot. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $5,500 in total values, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $5,000. Or if that's not enough, get a 2023 Jeep Compass with 5.9% for 72 months plus $2,000 in total values. Plus $500 bonus cash to first responders. Find the Jeep that's right for you at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Here we are, this 5 o'clock hour on the verge of starting. Today we have Emery Winter constantly working on what we have tonight at 10:30 on Sports Ted out on the CW every weeknight at 10:30. Jack McKenzie was here earlier. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. And then also Emery is counting down the number of subscribers we are, closing in on 30,000. You know, the NFL schedule is going to be released on, what is it, in a day or so. And
it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. That's a day or so. They've already released some international games. There are 3 games in London in October and 2 games in Germany and Frankfurt. Falcons and Jaguars. Jaguars played twice in London. It wasn't that initially because it was kind of like the crowds were terrible, so you might as well just play a game in London. Well, they're now pretty good with Trevor Lawrence.
Shad Khan, their owner, also owns a soccer team over there.
There you go. There's a connection. Ravens and Titans, one of the games in London. Dolphins and Chiefs. That's a mega game, a Kansas City game with the Dolphins in November in Frankfurt, and then Colts and Patriots the following week. So there's 5 weeks that they'll be either in London or Germany.
Yeah, and all those games are fairly good for the most part. I think that the Dolphins and Chiefs is probably the best one, but Jags and Bills also. Like I don't know. We'll see. I'm always reticent to get too excited about the Jaguars, even though they do appear to be trending in the right direction.
Yeah, no, they seem to make big time a step from where they were 2 years ago when they kind of made a run, and then of course last year made a very nice run, won a playoff game. Didn't they beat San Diego?
Yeah.
The Chargers in L.A.
But 2 international games?
Yeah.
No, one. The reason, again, you mentioned the owner, but the Jaguars have been placed overseas before because their attendance issues in Jacksonville. So it's almost like
the case now.
No.
Yeah, but
I said before they had been placed overseas because losing a home game for them was not really a big deal because the attendance was so bad.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So what did I say wrong? They have 2 international games this year.
Oh, I thought you were just saying, well, the Jaguars have 2, but
no, they're playing 2 games in London. So I'm saying, that's I'm questioning, dang, you got to go to London twice. I think that's kind of a big deal on your schedule.
Back to back, so they're just going to stay over.
Okay,
back
well,
to back
go.
weeks, so they're going to stay over and do that, which I think that's an interesting little experiment. One of the things I think is an experiment is that I think the NFL would like to just, as opposed to expanding, they would like to maybe move a team over there. And maybe the Jaguars are that team eventually because Jacksonville's not the, sexiest market that they're in.
The logistics of that. I know we're talking about these planes now that are almost like flying homes. But the logistics of that would be, how many games would you play there? If you were, for example, you're in Frankfurt or you're in London, how many games do you play in the United States?
And
now you're talking about
still do it 8 and 9, right?
But if a team is actually located there, that means the NFL has to put 6 or 8 other games there to fill their home schedule.
Oh, and preseason games too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know if it's really practical, but I do think that they want to. This might be the test to see like is this something we can really do. But I don't know.
London has been hosting NFL games now since 2007, so it's not like it's new. It just seemed like that number. When I heard that number, I was like, wow, that's quite a bit. So 3 in London, 2 of those the Jaguars, as Craig mentioned, 2 games in Germany. Have they been to Tokyo lately?
No, it's been a while.
Surprised that has, I'm not sure the exact logistics. And then they have been to Mexico City in the past. Cowboys, of course, have been there before. We'll see. I saw one of the notes that the other part of the schedule is that Washington and Dallas might renew their tradition of Thanksgiving Day, which is it's been going on forever, not every year. That they got away from that a little bit, mainly because Washington wasn't very good, but it's still a hell of a rivalry on Thanksgiving Day. So that is in the works, although that has not yet been officially announced. All right? So let's go back to Brett McMurphy and some of what he discussed today with us on 365 Sports. Was there anything that he said? We've talked about this so much, but was there a nugget or two that maybe he brought up that perhaps caught your attention the most?
I don't know about the scheduling part was kind of interesting, but again with the Pac-12, it just kind of goes back to what is their overall end game. He brought up the ACC too. He mentioned the term jumping over the wall, and it's big. I mean, they need Clarence Darrow to come back from the dead and argue their way out of the grant of rights. I don't know how that's going to work, but and none of us are here are attorneys, so maybe there's somebody out there who's about to crack the code, and we don't know. But I do think it's. I mean, when I asked him about do they, I think the Pac-12 they know the facts, but they don't know the reality of the situation of USC and UCLA. Like, they know that USC...
Who are you talking about as a conference? I think there's some leaders, programs in that conference.
Some that do, but I do think that, like, part of the reason a lot of their progress has been slowed is you've got some leaders in that conference that don't want to accept that reality of, as it's been thrown back in their face over months of negotiating the TV deal, is you can say whatever you want about Stanford or Washington or Oregon's or whoever's alumni base in Los Angeles being huge, but the 2 schools that are actually physically there are not in your conference anymore, and you're not going to have their games on television when this contract starts. So you cannot, rely on those numbers and think that you really had as much to do with it. I think that's a reality they're having trouble with, and I do think I know some people in the chat room. I think a lot of this. I would not compare this to USC and UCLA compared to Texas and OU leaving. I think that's a little bit different other than the capping and kind of the dead of night. I think this is more in the when Nebraska and Missouri and A&M and Colorado left initially, in that it was just the reality of where the conference was at that point, and they just went other places that were better and they had that opportunity, as opposed to or at least the conferences sticking together. I don't know if it's going to be the same way. I think it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, nothing that really stood out, really that's all above any of the other things that he said. I mean, I feel like I heard a lot of it or thought about a lot of it or, assumed a lot of it or whatever. So he just kind of was confirming or, in some cases, I mean, not all of that was just like, information we were privy to or opinions or whatever, but I think we got a pretty good general idea of what's going on. I think he just really reinforced that. And, it's just all very interesting. Again, just the moving parts and the he said, she said. And, here you got Andrew Marchand saying that, there's been, Pac-12 people that you can't really trust because of what they're saying, which is so interesting given the amount of, poo slinging from some people on that side of things about reporting and about who's saying what and about who's putting what messages out there. And it's like, oh, okay, well, here's a mirror, pal. This is a fun invention that you might want to look at every once in a while. But, it's kind of what I thought it was, but just maybe the heat feels like it's turning up a little bit because reality is setting in so many ways of just this isn't going to be – I mean, it set in a long time ago that it wasn't going to be a simple deal. That's why we're months down the line. But I think now at this point you're kind of like, oh, crap. Like we are getting to a point now where it's not we need to know something tomorrow or even next month, but you're looking around you a little bit more nervous, I think, than maybe you were even a couple of months ago or even a month ago for that matter, because the way it keeps going down, each and every week, it doesn't seem like it's positive news that's flowing in. It feels like it's more of that reality of kind of what's been talked about this entire time becoming only that much more of a reality, which is there's not a lot of money flowing right now in television for a college football product that isn't the Big Ten or the SEC. There's not a lot of spots as there once could have been had they done it at a different time. There is an element of, I think, having to trust each other, but also kind of looking out your side eye going, well, can I trust that person? And there's a lot of other things as well that we've touched on or alluded to. And yeah, that's all adding up to this very interesting story that who knows how much longer it's got to go.
They do, and who's up and who's down, and they like Pat McAfee is up, and Marshawn, I believe, is the one that brought up the first thing he brought up, or first part of his who's down. He mentioned the Pac-12 for a couple of different reasons. One is that, well, it's yet another week has gone by, that pretty much Amazon, according to what he was saying, is out. He did mention ESPN, but also said, and you heard Brett McMurphy mention this, is that doesn't mean ESPN's out because they're out, because you never know, they want a low deal and they would give pennies on the dollar. We've said that and heard that on this show for a long, long time, but these guys are really, really good at what they do. Someone asked him about I believe someone asked him about the USA Network, because they've been brought up a little bit in the background. He didn't think, I don't think that's happening. So, and John Kurtz put this up on his feed. One of the issues, or one of the topics brought up by Marshawn and also Orand, is that, Kirk Schultz said a lot, and Kirk Schultz fighting for the conference and for his own university. But one of the things that they mentioned, and it's hard to trust what is said, not because of any individual, but because these timelines, so-called deadlines, have been just wiped out, have been pushed down the road many times. Remember the PR run when you had some presidents and ADs, whatever, mentioning back in mid-March, and mid-March went by, and then it was April, then April went by. If they get it done, if they get something done and they survive, it doesn't matter when, it's good for the conference. But that, man, these lines have been blurred so many different times, and almost as if people have been forced to go on the record or to go on and say, hey, no, we're fine, but we're going to have something by the middle of April. And now here we are in almost the middle of May. So that was on the sports bit. I actually listened to it today when I was on the Stairmaster, and it was great because I never get to listen to the whole thing, and I listened to more than just what they were talking about with the Pac-12, but also so much more when it comes to sports business. All right, it's 5:10 down around the corner. John Machota of theathletic.com with us on 365 Sports. We've mentioned Huggins, the Big Ten and the scheduling, the NIL tax exempt with the Senate, also the NFL schedule. Casey Thompson from Nebraska or Texas prior to that is now with Tom Herman at Florida Atlantic, and so he finds himself a new home. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be. And they are now proud to offer men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offer an average body fat loss of about 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars, has clinical research proof of reducing stroke and also heart attack risk. If you are like one of those men, needs that, you have stubborn fat, you're tired of it, you can't get rid of it, no matter what you've done, no matter what diet, no matter how much exercise, then help is here with semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco or go to PettyClinicLowT.com and get a free consultation today with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you at lowt.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to the water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports around the corner. John Machota, NFL, and also covers the Cowboys for The Athletic. Couple of notes. By the way, Dennis Haiti wants to know your background. He can't get a read on you. Paul grew up was in Memphis, but born in Memphis, but then you grew up for most of your young life in Florida and went to FSU.
What does he mean by background?
I think he's wanting to maybe wondering if you should be an investigation into your life. No, he's just asking. He's just trying to get a read on who you are.
Okay, I mean, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee.
I just said that.
We moved to. I'm going to tell my own story. Okay,
you're getting defensive over a simple question.
My story. I was born in Memphis. We moved to Westchester, Pennsylvania for a little while. I was quite young. We moved to Rockland, California. I was like 5. We moved to Bossier City. We lived there for like 6 years, 5-6 years in Bossier City. Fort Myers, Florida. Then I went to Tallahassee. While I was in Tallahassee, my parents moved here. I have an English Lit degree from FSU. I didn't really use that because unless you want to be an English teacher, not much you can do with an English degree. Not to knock it, but I'm curious. Like my background, I wonder. What else does he need to know?
He just was asking, people. Maybe
they can't get a read on me. I don't know what that means though. It's a weird.
Well, get on the chat room and ask him. Dennis Haty, Haty, who's given us and shared some rating stuff with us, and also some historical perspective when it comes to TV, and also much more. There's a lot of talk again today on the chat room about the University of Houston, and Daniel Holgorsen is back and forth on whether people like him or not, or like the job, or is he under the gun. Dana Holgorsen told us live, and he also mentioned this to Sam Conn in an article, he's pretty damn tired of hearing about any hot seat. He said that to us when we interviewed him about a month ago, and so there's a lot of that today. Sometimes these chats can go in a completely different direction at all. And also, Gregory, if you ever cross paths with Paul, I would not even bring up sports. I would either ask him about Fort Myers, Florida, where we are both from, or bourbon.
Yeah, I can tell you lots about. I don't know. I haven't been at Fort Myers in a while. I went back for my 10-year reunion, 5 years ago, at Bishop Earl High School, and it was immensely different.
Wait a second. Your 10-year reunion?
My 20-year reunion. I'm sorry. Thank you, Craig.
5 years ago?
Yeah. My 20-year reunion.
Good try, Craig. Craig was paying attention.
Yeah, my 20-year reunion. I went back. I should have said I've been back essentially just for the 10 and the 20, and not really maybe one other time in between since I moved from Florida, from Tampa, after school for a little while. So it was so different. It was ridiculous. When I was at the airport, I remember a lady saying, "Do you need directions?" And I went, "Psst, I grew up here." And then she gave me a look, and then I got lost in the way to the hotel, and I was like, "Oh man, that was."
Yeah, Fort Myers used to be kind of a nice, quiet, little sleepy town, right? Yeah. Dennis, you are an interesting guy, Mr. Catalina. The FSU guy in Texas is a good dynamic. Had my doubts about you growing up in Florida, as others have forwarded.
Well, look, I can tell you, Florida is, and you have family that all lives there.
Yep.
Florida is such a bizarre place because there are people who are, I grew up there in my formative years, but I wasn't born there. I don't know if I'll die there. Who knows? But there's not a lot of that there, at least until now. Like, you're starting to see actual native Floridians, but for the longest time, when you were in Florida, nobody's really from there. They just ended up there. So it was weird. And it there was a hard dynamic on what is a real Floridian or whatever. It's a bizarre place.
Yeah, that's where my father was born, in Haines City, Florida, and also where he passed away in Largo, Florida. All right, so we mentioned the NFL schedule. John Machota just around the corner. I touched on this yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to really visit with it much. But one of the things that has changed over the years, and I guess I haven't paid much attention to it, but I did notice this, especially the last year. If an AFC team played an AFC team, unless it was on Sunday night or Monday night or Thursday night football, that game was going to be on NBC. They owned the rights to the games in the AFC. If it was an NFC versus NFC game, unless it was Thursday, Sunday, or Monday night, that was going to be on Fox. That was, of course, back in the day. That would have been before it was on Fox. Let's see, CBS, I guess, had the games. Was that right?
Yeah, CBS had the NFC and NBC had the AFC.
Yes.
And then when Fox came along, NBC was gone for a little while before they came back with Sunday night. And
Fox took over the NFC,
and CBS got the AFC.
So I remember that was so. Wait a minute, who's Fox back in time? But it's not happening anymore. They have just crossed over. It's almost, if you think about it, how much you watch the NFL draft, if you watched ESPN, ABC, or even the NFL Network or whoever, is that there were people crossing over. Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network was on ESPN. Mel Kiper was on the NFL Network. You never would have seen that back in the day. Is that because they're sharing talent to cut some costs, or because the more knowledge and insight you have of people who could join your show, the better the product.
I think it's the better the product, and I think some people are just independent contractors. They do kind of hit and run stuff. But as far as the AFC and NFC, over the last 5 or 6 years, it's been like a draft where Fox is going to get a good AFC game every so often. They were kind of going back and forth, and I think because really the networks got tired of doing the same kind of things over and over again and wanted to share some of the audience, or if you're CBS and you get the Cowboys maybe 2 times a year, if it works out for you, well, you kind of want the Cowboys more. So now you can have a better even draft. And I'm only saying that, I'm not trying to be biased, but 4 of the top 8 games last year were all the Cowboys.
Yeah, but now if you're Fox, you can get the Chiefs.
Yes,
not
exactly.
If they're visiting an NFC team, but you might just get the Chiefs game against another AFC team, which you weren't going to get in the past.
Yeah, you got some of those, didn't you? Like if the Cowboys were hosting the Chiefs, that would never be on Fox?
No, the way it worked for the longest of time, and maybe in the last couple of years it's changed. If an AFC team visited an NFC team and it was a Sunday game, it was going to be on NBC. If a NFC team visited an AFC team on Sunday, it was going to be on Fox. The visiting team would get the network based on who they were connected with.
So here, to put it simply, because
the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day, even on Thanksgiving Day, if they were to play the Jets or the Bengals or the Patriots, that game
CBS
would have been on CBS. Yeah, I'm sorry, CBS, who gets the AFC.
Because that way the CBS broadcasters can go and do a game in a city they're not doing it. So that's how they would trade off. So if the AFC team is the road team, then CBS would get it. If the NFC team is the road team in the cross conference, then Fox would get it.
Yeah, just the way you said that, it made me sound like it was all NFC teams only, and like there was no crosses. I just heard that wrong, I guess. But yeah, I mean it's interesting. They're going to have more flexibility to have different matchups than maybe we've come to see in the past. Although there is a little caveat to that. It's not as though the CBS folks can just line up and say, well, we're just going to get the Cowboys.
Right.
There's appearance minimums. They have to show certain teams a number of times. So guess what? CBS is going to show AFC teams probably they are going to have more written in as far as the minimum number of times to see certain teams. So I think it'll all balance out to pretty much close probably to what it is right now, where Fox is more heavy NFC and what I forget all the networks are on now.
CBS says the AFC.
Yeah, CBS is still heavier AFC, but yeah, there's going to be more crossover. I think that's cool rather than having it almost feel like a line drawn in the sand where you're on this side and you're on this side, and that's the way it is. There's going to be more of crossing those lines, so I think that'll be good. Just that we talk about it with college football all the time. What do they want? They want the best games, right? So the best games, whether they're AFC or NFC, I'm sure that's what the networks are interested in.
And speaking of that, Peter King in his column Monday morning, with the AFC now, and it flows. It changes. The NFC for the longest of time was just without question the dominant conference. And of course, back in the 80s, early 90s, mid-90s, they were elite, just killed the AFC in Super Bowls and all that. But with the flexing that goes on, with a game that might be scheduled on Sunday night that might end up being 2 teams that are 3-10, that created a kind of a, oh my God, where can we put this game? Who replaces them? Now the AFC is the more competitive conference because they have all the quarterbacks. And so now that allows Fox in this downtime, so to speak, they have a chance to get some of those guys, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, whoever, Herbert, on their show or on their network. So really good time, and it's just different. You grew up, if it was an AFC team on the road against NFC, it was going to be on the AFC network and vice versa. So that's what they're doing. Become fascinating wrinkle when the time comes to examine the schedule, whether it's 50-50 split or whether there's still evidence of assigning games that the NFC skews towards Fox, the AFC to CBS. So look for that when that comes out here tomorrow. When we come back, John Machota, what does he know? Any thoughts on the Cowboys and who they might, not who they're going to play? They know that, and they also know where, home and away, but possibly primetime games, which the Cowboys usually get the bigger chunk of that, and this is 365 Sports. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, they have, in fact, new incentives, discounts, and more out for the month of May. Got these yesterday. The Jeep season, May is the Jeep season. Deals on the Jeeps are hot. 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $5,500 in total values, or 2023 Jeep Gladiator, the Sport, with total values of up to $5,000. And if that's not enough, the 2023 Jeep Compass with 5.9% financing for 72 months plus $2,000 in total values plus $500 bonus cash to anybody that is a part of being a first responder. And May is also Ram season. And right now, shop the greatest selection of the new inventory in Central Texas and get great deals, including the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, $4,250 in total values, or 2.9% financing for 72 months. And the 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab, 10% off MSRP, 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com, or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Here we go, John Machota, theathletic.com. Cowboys in the NFL. Schedule has been, some of it leaked, and again tomorrow, the official release. Thank you, John, Paul, Craig, and David. Any thoughts on, any nuggets on the Cowboys yet with any of their games? How many primetime games they might get?
You know, every year, I feel like over the last 3 or 4 years, they've done a good job of kind of keeping it under wraps. I would say the most momentum and the most, consistent rumors, thoughts I've heard from people in the know is the possibility that they open the season Sunday Night Football against the Jets at AT&T Stadium, which, I mean, because Aaron Rodgers goes there, that changes everything for that schedule. You know, if they're making this schedule a couple months ago, there's no chance they would open the season against the Jets. But with Rodgers being there, you just knew that when he went to the Jets and that the Jets were on the Cowboys schedule, that was going to be some type of a primetime game. And so I think that would be really cool if they open the season with them. Because at first I heard that they might play them on Thanksgiving, and then it doesn't sound like that's going to happen now. And so I think that one would probably be the most intriguing for me personally in terms of interest, but also the one at Buffalo is going to be interesting because do you go early in the year or do you go in December where it could just be, you're playing in a foot of snow. And so there's a couple games that when they come out I'm looking for, but they've done a good job of, I feel like it's because of the NFL, every team has turned it into their own little publicity thing for their websites and things like that they've done a better job keeping under wraps because, for the Cowboys, they had, I think it was Stephen A. Smith last year, Post Malone a few years before that. There just isn't as much leaking going on because it's turned into this big off-season holiday event.
John, so that means they may not open with the Giants again this year. So nice little run of that not happening. We had it felt like 4 or 5 years in a row, didn't we?
It was something like that. Yeah, I'd say that sounds about right. And right now would be the time to do it. I mean, at least the Giants are, they're a playoff team now. There was just several years there where you're just kind of I don't know, if it has interest, it makes a lot of sense. But I'm fine with the other thing. The other one to point out too is that the Cowboys won't be going overseas this year, and so I'm thinking because they'll have the 9 home games next year, I could see one of them being somewhere, possibly Mexico City, something like that, where they end up leaving the country to play a regular season game for the first time since London in 2014.
John, what do you think of early divisional games, like when they would kick off week 1 against the Giants versus, kind of letting those breathe a little bit and having it to when teams kind of have their feet under them a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's better when they're later in the year for sure. But also, I get it with the Cowboys because, the division they're in is just such a huge media market with all the teams that are involved there. And so I get that as much as, saying that that's good for business. That's good for, to have it later in the year. That's best for the football players and the matchups and things like that. But the NFL line one is TV and what's going to draw the most eyeballs. And that's what they care about the most. I mean, if that wasn't the case, they would never have any of these Thursday games. But now it's let's try and get another day. That's not in the best interest for the players either or the team. So yeah, of course, it would be better if all of them were later in the season. But because every matchup in the NFC East is such a big, TV grab and it draws so many eyeballs, I get why they mixed it up. You wish it was a little bit more about the football, but you also can see both sides of it because look at how much the NFL has grown and how it's just clearly not even close to the most popular sport in the country.
I don't know how many years, and it probably wasn't in a row, but, man, we used to discuss how it was clockwork that the first game of the year would be like on a Monday or a Sunday night, Cowboys and Giants, either up in New Jersey or in Dallas. And, again, that's just automatic. It's like stealing money because of the numbers those two franchises will bring in.
Well, and then now it is the Jets. You still get the New York market.
Yeah.
Just the intrigue of Rodgers. I mean, one, just what he's done to the Cowboys throughout his career. He's obviously been a thorn in their side, but then obviously there's still the McCarthy connection. There's the fact that it's him first time you're really seeing Aaron Rodgers, with this new organization and that. So, I mean, I totally get why that would draw eyeballs too.
John, we actually didn't talk about this with you, but Micah Parsons made a little waves when he said he was bulking up to play full-time defensive end. And look, by the videos, it didn't look like it's slowed him down at all. Thoughts on them not using him in a role that moves him around the field, which was so successful before?
Yeah, I think that will still happen. I don't believe that he's making a full-time move to D-end. I don't know that he said that like that either. I know it's reported by one outlet that he said it like that, but multiple other outlets were at the thing that he was at as well. And no one has reported it as that hardcore stance that he will just be a DN now. I do not believe that one. The only way I would believe that that's even a possibility is if by some chance there's a new defensive coordinator. And last time I checked, it's still Dan Quinn. Will he play more on the defensive line than he has the previous 2 years? Yes, I fully believe that. Each of the last 2 years, it's trended more in that direction. I believe that that's the case again. But I still think there'll be times where he drops. I think there will be plenty of times where he's rushing over the top of the center. They will not just be like, you're our right defensive end. You stay out there, and there you go. That would be just – I think that would mismanage his talent, to be honest with you. And I think one of his greatest strengths is versatility. So I do not believe that even him adding bulk means he's going to be he's right defensive end. DeMarcus Lawrence is left defensive end. Here we go. I don't see that happening. I don't think that that's what they want to do. But the days of him playing as much linebacker as he did, especially his rookie year, those are gone now. But he's at his best rushing the passer, and they're going to put him in position to, again, be one of the league leaders in sacks, and that should be where he is utilized.
Other than those who were drafted, I guess, on the first or second day, and, of course, Deuce Vaughn got a lot of attention, the trades that got a lot of attention, and some of them seem to be really, really just really efficient and very good. Is there somebody the Cowboys have added to their roster in the offseason that you think might be a kind of a unique sleeper-type fun story?
Well, I'll say this. Some of the guys that they signed after the draft or added after the draft, agreed to terms with, whatever you want to say. This kid out of Oregon who was a guard there. I think Dane Brugler had him as the fifth or sixth round grade and ranked him in the top 15 amongst guards in the draft. He just didn't get drafted. With this team, it's going to be an open competition at left guard. And I just think that if he plays well enough, you could get a guy that you didn't even draft, who could end up getting starting time. And the guy I think of in that kind of similarly was Ron Leary, because Ron Leary, during all the testing that before leading up to that draft, he had what, doctors told him was basically a degenerative knee condition. And so he wasn't going to have a very long NFL career. But if he didn't have that, he was obviously going to be drafted. And he comes to the Cowboys, and those couple of years Ron Leary was over, I would say those are probably the two of the best years at the offensive line that the Cowboys have had for the last decade. And so, it doesn't just because, you use a lot of first round picks in the offensive line doesn't mean that's the only way you can get it done. That's one guy that certainly stands out to me. Vaughn's the other one, only because, obviously there's a great story, but there's also the sense of, for me, I want to see them use some of these smaller guys with speed, because we just haven't really seen it very much. There was that time when they had Tavon Austin, and then we heard a lot last year about how they were going to utilize more of Turpin in the offense, and you never really saw it. And then now you add Brandon Cooks, who's a smaller receiver, and now you have Deuce Vaughn, and there's still the talk of getting Turpin more involved in the offense. And it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, man, if you guys are going to use all these smaller, speedy guys, I can't wait. Looking forward to see it. I can't imagine it right now because I just haven't seen the Cowboys do that. And also, even when Mike McCarthy was in Green Bay, they really didn't do that. They had Randall Cobb, but outside of Randall Cobb, those 13 years, Mike McCarthy was in Green Bay. It was a lot of those bigger receivers. So those are some of the things I'm intrigued about going into training camp. Like, how much is this offense going to change? How are you going to get some of these smaller guys, the ball, which I would think would be near the line of scrimmage? So, some of those things like that. And then the other part too is also, that 4th, 5th wide receiver spot. It should be Jalen Tolbert. You think Cavante Turpin, but they got some guys like Simi Fehoko and Dennis Houston, and they added another 4 undrafted guys, and you just never know about that last receiver spot because the top 3 are set. But after that, there's a lot of open competition there.
John, the little guy, super athletic, jackknife player, has been seemingly an obsession of the Joneses going back a couple coaches now, and just has never come to fruition, really.
It really hasn't. And I don't know that I mean, yeah, they had Cole Beasley, and I thought him and Dak, the rapport was pretty good. But even with Cole, it was multiple training camps we'd go into where they would talk about how, Cole's, add more to his, route tree, and he's getting down the field more, and Dak's going to be throwing deep to him, and it never happened, And then they added Tavon Austin, like I said, and Lance Dunbar was a guy they talked about with that. I mean, heck, just all the times that, there was all that talk about, who am I forgetting here? Not Turpin, but there was another receiver. I can't remember who it was. That was like, oh, we're going to get him the ball. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Tony Pollard. How much would we talk about Tony Pollard? Like when he was at Memphis, he was a receiver. They're going to throw to him a lot more. It's like, well, we're 4 years into his career. Haven't seen that yet. So there's those parts of it where you're like, is this going to be a little bit different? Because, hey, this is the first time you really have a different play caller because, yes, Kellen doesn't do things the exact same way that Linehan did, that Garrett did, but all of those kind of came together, and there's some similarities there. So maybe Mike McCarthy finds a way to do that, especially considering that there still seems to be some questions. Well, it's funny. Dak has been down, I feel like, almost pretty consistently the longer. I certainly think that that's been a big part of, LeBron James' longevity. He's been able to lean down a little bit and, works out differently now than he did earlier in his career. And I think that's what you do when you're in that position. You're trying to get yourself in the best shape possible. Tom Brady was certainly a guy who did that too. I mean, some people will talk about plastic surgery. Hey, maybe that was involved, but if you look at Tom Brady's face today compared to Tom Brady's face when he came in the league, it doesn't even look like the same person with how thin his face is now. So I think that, yeah, I'm sure he has leaned down a little bit, but I think that is by design because, he's hoping he has a long career, and the older you get, the more of that weight you want to take off.
Thank you very much, John. Have a great rest of the week and weekend. John Machota, TheAthletic.com, covers the Cowboys in the NFL. The schedule coming out tomorrow. Some of that been leaked today. His thoughts about that and also the Cowboys roster personnel. And they end as they continue into the offseason. When we come back, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak. We have Paul Catalina's Top 5, and this is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? by not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession?
We selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef, and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 college football overs. Craig and I talked about some of these win totals on Friday. And look, I'm not telling you to bet these, but I'm saying that I think these teams are going to go over the win totals. And I got the aggregates from VegasInsider.com, so they have them all. So this is the average of what everybody did across. So number 5, I'm taking Michigan over 9.5 wins. This is a team that returns its quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and the schedule is pretty easy. Look, they start out, the first 4 games are East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. Then they go to Nebraska and Minnesota, which will be tougher than the first 4. But
really?
But I think there's a talent gap there.
Better watch out talking that trash. Matt Rule's there now. Yeah. He's your buddy. You have to actually hear from him.
He has not sent me tickets yet, so until he does.
Indiana at Michigan State, Purdue with a new coach, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. Now, that last 4 stretch is tough. It's going to be tougher. Even Purdue with a new coach and Hudson Card and all that. But Penn State at Maryland, at Ohio, or at home for Ohio State, that's a tough stretch. But I'm still going that this team is going to be at 10 wins almost pretty easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're actually above 9.5 some other places. So what does that tell you? That 10 at least looks like you could have put that up there, and that would have been probably as debated. But I think with 9.5, or it actually maybe more debated, because I think at 9.5, seems like over is very fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair given the schedule, given the returning talent, given the momentum.
Blake Corum's coming back. Donovan Edwards coming back.
Corum, we need to see how healthy he is, but they should have a running back available, or 5, to be able to pick up what any slack he's not able to pick up maybe right away. I don't know. I haven't seen an update on him in a while. I know he's progressing, but I just don't know. Like, it's like a Cam Rising thing. Is he available right away? But early in the season, they should be fine. I mean, all the pieces are there, especially coming off of the heels of last year and the confidence that has to give you. That doesn't carry over necessarily, like the winning part of it, but just the fact that you've beaten Ohio State, you've been to the playoff, you won the Big Ten, you did all of those things. That's a big deal, man, even if it's a different team. But there's a lot of those team members that are back, as you said. So, I think that they're set up very well.
I think it also means something for even a guy who is supremely confident like Jim Harbaugh, because he lives on Jim Harbaugh planet and no one else's.
Right.
I think it's important for him and the coaching staff to have done this a couple of times and know that it's not just how do we do that this time? It's not a fluke anymore. Number 4, Kentucky. 6.5. I'm going to say over on Kentucky. Devin Leary, I don't know if we've been talked about enough. This dude is really good, and would have, had he come out healthy this year, been probably picked, I would say, before Will Levis, who was the quarterback at Kentucky last year. But he wasn't healthy, and he came back, and we got to get Steven in here or something to get these flies out here. Because they're back.
They're like fruit flies.
Yeah.
But all that pizza in the trash can.
But 6.5 wins for Kentucky when you start out with Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Vanderbilt and Florida. Those they should all win. And I know Florida is maybe the biggest wild card. Then they go to Georgia. Let's not get it twisted there. Mizzou, Tennessee, going to be a tough one, obviously. Mississippi State, Bama, South Carolina, and Louisville. There's 7 wins in there to me, guys, especially when you have Devin Leary at quarterback, who I think is going to be and I liked Will Levis. I think Will Levis is probably going to have, in my opinion, a good NFL career. But I think Devin Leary is actually an upgrade.
They're going to play defense because of Stoops. They're going to run the ball well, but now they have somebody they can, again, toss it around the neighborhood, and then, it's just they're in a nice mode right now. They're kind of humming along, and I think 7+ wins, 7-8 wins is not too far fetched by any means.
No, it's not far fetched at all. It's a team that's regularly going to be in bowl games. You'd expect for the foreseeable future, and that wasn't necessarily how you always felt about Kentucky football, and now it's kind of. Bottom line for them is, they're going to be good enough to win a few games and make a bowl, but to what extent can they build upon that? So, at 6.5, I think that's an interesting number, but I'll be somebody that joins you in going over there based on the schedule and the big pickup at quarterback, as you mentioned. I mean, you don't do that to barely make a bowl game. You don't do that if you the rest of the team sucks and you have no hope. But Devin Leary's going to come in and he's going to magically turn it into an 8-win team for you. You feel like you've got a pretty good situation. You bring him in, he's the finishing piece that puts you over the top. And I like them over 6.5.
I'll tell you this, in my opinion, Alabama is going to regret not getting in the Devin Leary Derby, or if they didn't or not. I don't know if they did. But
they should start off 4-0.
Yeah.
So can they win 2 more games? Now I know. Then all of a sudden you start throwing in the big names, and they got to play those names. But what's Florida going to be like? They could start off 5-0. Mm-hmm. And then they're not going to beat Georgia. That's 99.9% chance they lose that game. But those first 5 are all very winnable. They could be 5-0 heading into Athens,
and then just have to find 2 wins.
Yeah,
the rest of the way out.
Yeah, which is easier said than done because it is the SEC, Tennessee, Alabama. But Mississippi State, they're not expected to be fantastic by any means with the coaching change. South Carolina, same. Louisville, who the hell knows by the end of the year? It's a rivalry game. Missouri. So, I think that there's definitely 2 more wins you could find in there.
Yeah. Number 3, Kansas. I'm saying it, back-to-back years in bowl games, over 5.5 here for Kansas. They're returning a quarterback who we all know is really good and really good in close games, too. Jalen Daniels is. I think that is, to me, because Kansas is going to have to ride that down the line. Now, their schedule is probably tougher, especially for them, than anybody else. Look, their second game is Illinois. Brett Bielema, I don't think is going to slow down anywhere, not a lot, although they did. Illinois lost their quarterback. They lost their running back. They lost Devin Witherspoon. They lost some guys. So Bielema's going to have to build that up. But that game's a lot more of a toss-up. It would have been in Illinois coming off a bowl year, and Kansas in most years. Nevada, they have BYU is going to be tough. And, of course, they get in the Big 12 schedule. But I just think the way that they navigated it last year, that they're going to find a way to 6 wins. I really do. And what Lance Leipold is doing there, I don't if it's – over 5.5 to me means 6. Could they get to 7? Yeah, I don't want to go too much past that in my confidence.
I think it's great that KU and Kansas State have their coaches under contract for extensions, for big money. And obviously that doesn't mean that they still can't be looked at with others' wandering eyes, but I think that's pretty cool that they're both pretty solid with what they have with Leipold and also Kleiman.
Well, the good news for Kansas, though, is the 2 jobs you would have said that Leipold would really fit well are Nebraska and Wisconsin, well, they just spent big money on new coaches of their own. So.
But those are the ones that were open.
Yeah, too. Yeah.
We didn't go and say, like, the ones that have people, planted there because that could change overnight. But you're right. I mean, it was a good sign that, he made the commitment that he did and didn't end up, moving on after getting them to a spot where you kind of feel like the wheels are finally in motion. So I think, coming off of last year and Jalen Daniels back and, Devin Neal back and, many others as well, that should be bare minimum 5.5 wins. Yeah, I say over here. I think, especially the newcomers, we just treat them like they're just walking in like they've already been in the Big 12 for years. Like somebody's going to have to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if it's going to be Cincinnati. I know BYU's played this all-star schedule or, it's close to it, a tough schedule for a while, and so they're used to it and feel like there won't be as much of an adjustment maybe as some of the others. I don't know, but I mean, I don't expect all of them to come in just guns blazing. And so you play, UCF, BYU. Maybe there's a couple of games you can get, but yeah, within the Big 12, I think there's a couple that they can get as well. They do play Oklahoma and Texas, but they got Oklahoma at home there. Who knows what the Sooners look like at that point? I mean, so yeah, I definitely am going over 5.5 for KU. I wouldn't go like 7, 8 and go crazy, but yeah, can they win 6 games? Yeah, absolutely.
They were not a fluke. It wasn't like they just happened to be like bounce into a couple of wins. They have the quarterback. They're tough. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to go 9-3 or 4, but it was done and it's being built very methodically by Leipold.
And they pushed a lot of teams to the limit last year too. Even in games that may have been lost by 10 or so points, they did push those teams to the limit last year. Number 2, and this one's obvious, Georgia over 11.5. This team is going to finish with 12 wins. Now, are they going to finish with all the wins? No, but between the SEC title game and an inevitable playoff appearance, in my opinion, Georgia over 11.5. And I know that that's like it's a hard one to swallow, but this is their schedule, and I will rattle.
Is this before the SEC championship game? 12 wins.
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that would still get them to that. But if you throw that in there, look,
if you throw that in there, then yeah, hell yeah. I mean, you're basically, if this is regular season only, it's more interesting because with 2 postseason games probably, then yeah, they're definitely over.
Maybe 3, right?
So UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB, Auburn, Kentucky, Vandy, Florida, Mizzou, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech, and only Tennessee on that schedule to me is one that can.
Where do they play South Carolina? I know that they're
at home.
Okay.
South Carolina's. I mean,
I know,
there's
but
split opinions on them.
I know, but if they were hot at the end of the year, dangerous. I'm not saying for Georgia, but just curious. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, week 3 in Athens, I don't really buy their chances all that much right there. But yeah, I understand. There's. You're trying to just look for who could pop up. I mean, at Tennessee the next to last week, I don't think it's just necessarily chalk it up as an automatic because we don't know at that point what anybody looks like. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, outside of that game, you're not really worried about any others. I think Auburn on the road, just with, the change there, I don't think they'll have the talent ready at that point in time. It's going to take a little while for Hugh Freeze to get all set up and squared away. But I'm interested in that game just to see what that even looks like. But, yeah, I mean, outside of the Tennessee road game in mid-November, there's not a lot to really sweat over.
Missouri almost beat them. So there's somebody on there that we don't think about that somehow it's just the way it is. Some of the most unbelievable teams ever had, sweated out. So somebody will, plus maybe a Tennessee or Auburn, but – yeah, they're just rolling right into that season.
Yeah. And number 1, Notre Dame over 8.5. I say this, and look, their schedule is, it's actually not the toughest Notre Dame schedule that they've ever had, but I say this because of my supreme faith in Sam Hartman and the fact that putting him on this roster with a defense that's going to be a year better under Marcus Freeman, and even though they lost some skilled players, I don't think they're going to miss a lot of those guys. I think they actually have some quality depth. They can, look, the toughest games on the schedule, Clemson, USC, and Ohio State. That's tough. But if you even lose all those 3 and win the rest, you are 9-3, and you're hitting the over.
Marshall.
Yeah, well, Was Sam Hartman in that game? He was not.
I know, but they did lose to Marshall. And
was Sam Hartman in that game? He was not.
Yeah, there was also like 10 other games after that we saw a bit more, and Marcus Freeman got his feet underneath him a little bit by the end of the year. That was a very rough start, to be sure.
No
but
kidding,
they're not going to have a repeat of that, I wouldn't think, because now he's firmly entrenched. But that NC State game would have been. Especially with Devin Leary, really interesting in week 3.
Now it's Brennan Armstrong.
So it's still, an interesting game that you got to look at, but I don't know that you necessarily pick NC State to win that game. But yeah, I mean, they have what looks like it could very well be. I don't know who to pick in them in USC right now or them in Clemson right now. I like Ohio State over them, but there's definitely a path to 10, 11 wins here if they play well. So yeah, I could buy over 8.5.
Yeah, I think so. And again, this is part of Sam Hartman's a gamer. He still stays healthy. They're going to win. They're going to win a lot of games with him this year.
I just think there's some teams that we just don't really know just yet, like who they're going to be and what they're going to look like. So you see certain names and you're like, okay. But yeah, those 3 would be the ones that I would start off with. And like you said, even if they lose those 3, that's still a 9-3. So I like their chances a lot. And then you add in a bowl game, of course, and yeah, that seems like a good safe bet.
Well, good for hopefully everything works out for Marcus Freeman, because you're right, man. What a rocky start. And you know how many people were like, did we do this right? And they ended up kind of digging themselves out of that hole. Garrett, thank you very much. Emery Winter, thank you very much. Don't forget tonight, Sports Tonight at 10:30 on the CW, which will be 4 of the segments we have. And I believe Brett McMurphy, a couple of different segments with him. Brian Murphy on the U.S. Senate bill on NIL donors and tax exempt. And I forgot the other one. I just went blank. I just did the tease. All right, that's tonight at 10:30 right here on the CW. Thanks, Garrett, Emery, Craig, Paul. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to all of you in the chat room, the text line, our sponsors. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you